Whose fault is it that we can't have kids? Do you even understand what we've been through these past 3 years? We live in my mother-in-law's house. My mother-in-law blurted this out in a fit of rage as soon as we got home. My husband seemed to sense something was off with her behavior. He stood in front of me protectively. I had married the man I loved, and it's been 3 years since we started living with his parents. Every day, I endured my mother-in-law's sarcasm. Because we didn't have children. I do want kids someday. But I know it's tough to balance work and raising a child. My mother-in-law, however, disregarded these complex issues and blamed me relentlessly. I've been tolerating her relentless criticism and her intrusive nature. But it seemed I had finally reached my breaking point. One day, I came home to find my room completely empty. My clothes, bags, furniture like my bed, and even the book I was reading, everything had vanished. Shocked, I was at a loss for words. My husband frantically searched and found everything stuffed in bags and dumped at a nearby garbage disposal site. Furious at her actions, he confronted his mother, but she showed no remorse and instead scolded me. Always lying about considering it. A foolish daughter-in-law like you, a scam artist who can't even have kids. With hateful eyes, she glared at me. Suddenly, she screamed and lunged at me, pushing my husband aside. Mom, stop! He shouted, trying to block her, but she reached out for me with incredible strength. Frozen in fear, I couldn't move. A daughter-in-law who can't bear grandchildren is useless. Just go back to the countryside. My name is Nancy. I'm 31 years old and currently work as an office employee. I left my small town in Nebraska for college and experienced city life for the first time. I was busy studying and working part-time while managing my first solo living experience. Interested in economics, I landed a job as a clerk in the accounting department, using my college experiences. I've maintained a good relationship with my parents back home, regularly communicating with them. I would return to Nebraska during vacations to recharge with family and friends before heading back to the city. I met Tom, who would later become my husband, a few years after joining the company. He was a senior by 3 years, working as a manager in the planning department. We first spoke at a company event meant to foster camaraderie, where we happened to sit next to each other. Despite the lack of previous interaction, our casual conversation led to a deeper understanding of each other, and I eagerly engaged in our talks. Tom was bright, calm, and kind. Captivated by him, I would greet him whenever I saw him at work and accidentally bump into him at the station, like a smitten middle school girl. Eventually, our relationship grew into having dinners after work, and after a few dates, he asked me out. I was ecstatic, feeling on top of the world to be noticed by someone I admired. Our relationship progressed smoothly, leading to an engagement. First, we visited my parents in Nebraska for a marriage introduction. Both my father and Tom were visibly nervous but bonded over shared interests like alcohol and cooking. Our future seemed to be sailing smoothly. When we visited my in-laws' house, it was the first time I met my mother-in-law, Evelyn. She greeted me with a bright smile. She chatted about my hometown and various topics, trying to ease my nerves. I felt genuinely comforted by her kind and smiling demeanor. Well, I'm gonna head to the restroom. My husband, Tom, said, sensing it was okay to leave us alone. As soon as he left the living room, Evelyn suddenly asked, "So, when are you planning to have kids?" What? Tom gets mad when I ask him stuff like this. Men are just so haphazard, aren't they? You're a woman, Nancy, you understand, right? She continued, taking me by surprise. I couldn't hide my shocked expression. Understand what exactly? I asked cautiously, not expecting to discuss children before we were even married. She replied as if it were the most natural thing. Well, if you're joining the family, isn't it obvious that you should have children? She was still smiling. Of course, I understood a mother's excitement for grandchildren. I, too, wanted to give my own parents the joy of grandchildren. But isn't the decision to have children something a couple should discuss together? And I didn't marry him just to have children. What would Evelyn think of me if I couldn't conceive? My heart fluttered with anxiety. I was still hesitating when Tom came back. Evelyn quickly changed the subject to her late husband, Tom's father. My husband passed away shortly after Tom became an adult. He worked hard every day, and thanks to his inheritance, we could afford Tom's college. I'm managing all right now, working part-time. Me and Nancy are planning to move to an apartment nearby after getting married. I don't want Mom to worry after all she's been through. Sure, you say that now, but I bet you'll be calling me over to help with chores and cooking when you're busy. Tom and Evelyn chatted happily. I tried to smile, but I couldn't forget our earlier conversation. The chatter continued about mundane topics like her part-time job and the challenges of standing all day. The topic of children never came up again. I tried to convince myself that Evelyn was just anxious for grandchildren and didn't mean any harm. Despite some lingering worries, we smoothly finished our visit and left the in-laws' house. A few months after registering our marriage, I got a call from Tom in a panic. Mom had an accident, he said. She fell down the stairs and hurt her leg. She can't do much on her own and asked if we could help take care of her. I'm gonna check on her every day since it's nearby, but can you help out if it's really necessary? He seemed hesitant to ask. Since our marriage, Evelyn hadn't mentioned anything about children, and I started to feel relieved, thinking I might have misunderstood her. So I readily agreed, of course. Evelyn's injury was serious enough to require a cast on her leg. Tom visited her daily as she struggled to adjust to life on crutches. Then one day, when Tom was away on a business trip, I went to visit her in his place. My mother-in-law, Evelyn, asked me in a casual tone when we were alone in the room. So, what are your plans for grandchildren? It's probably difficult by the end of this year, right? Are you actively trying to conceive? Her question caught me off guard as it sounded like she was inquiring about our usual household chores. I was so surprised that I couldn't find my voice. Although it seemed like she had picked up on some terminology, the blunt content of her question left me wondering how to respond. I thought it wouldn't be right to outright deny her question, so I replied calmly, "We'll discuss it with my husband and make a decision." In reality, we had already discussed not rushing into having children. Since my husband had already mentioned this, he probably didn't know that she was eagerly anticipating grandchildren. But there's also the matter of your age, right? You can't stay young forever. It's not like we won't ever think about having children in the next 5 or 10 years. We'll decide together, my husband and I. Despite my mother-in-law's reluctant expression, she reluctantly backed down for the time being. I couldn't help but feel that what she had said on the day of our wedding introduction wasn't just my imagination, and I could feel my heart trembling. To make matters more complicated, Evelyn brought up an entirely different topic. She suggested that we should sell our apartment and move in together here. Living together? Well, you see, with this injury, my body is in pain. And I'm afraid of living alone, especially after something like today. There might be days when Tom can't come, right? It would be a burden for you to come every time. Due to her injury, she had to take an extended leave from her part-time job, causing financial concerns. Since I couldn't make this decision on my own, I discussed it with my husband. He seemed more willing to consider the idea because he had been thinking about it already. It's not much different from our current address, and thinking about having to visit my mom every time she's injured or sick, it seems like it would be a lot of trouble. So, I've been thinking, maybe it's better if we live together. My husband said, not very confidently. It seemed like he was worried about inconveniencing me. And that's why he hadn't brought it up earlier. While there was some awkwardness regarding the children issue, I knew my husband cared deeply for his mother. Besides the words, there hadn't been any significant actions directed at me, so I couldn't strongly object. In the end, we decided to sell our apartment and move in with Evelyn. Since both my husband and I had jobs, we would go to work during the day, leaving Evelyn alone. However, my husband, who was busy with frequent business trips, and I, who worked as an office clerk, had irregular return times. But as time went on, things changed. When my husband wasn't around, Evelyn began targeting me with her remarks. Always about having children. She discussed our future plans, the risks of having a child at an older age, and even handed me brochures that seemed to be from a gynecologist's office. As you get older, your physical strength declines, so it's better to have a child soon. To avoid regrets. Child rearing isn't just the wife's responsibility, you know? If you wait too long to conceive, it'll mean I'll be getting older too. Yes, but we're still considering it, so. Of course, in the end, it's up to you and your husband. But having grandchildren in the house seems so enjoyable and wonderful. Well, think about it positively. Even though her words felt like pricks from needles, I had to hold back and respond with a forced yes, we'll discuss it. Since I was living in my in-laws' house, I couldn't risk being kicked out. I did consider discussing it with my husband at one point, but it happened to be a time when he was in the midst of discussions about a promotion. I didn't want to add to his worries while he was busy with work, so I ended up keeping it to myself and dealing with it alone. Gradually, Evelyn's leg fully healed. But I had already been thinking about how I wanted to stop living together. I secretly started looking for apartments nearby and considered if there was a way to leave my in-laws' house. However, within a few days, Evelyn announced that she had injured her arm this time. She explained that she had been working at her part-time job, and some items fell on her, and she had to put her hand in harm's way. My workplace called me, and I had to go to the hospital with her and handle all the paperwork. When we returned home, my husband, who had been worried and waiting for us, was there to greet us. As soon as she saw Tom, she clung to him, almost in tears. "I'm really sorry, Nancy, and to you too. It's all because of my carelessness, causing you trouble." "Mom, don't say that. How's your hand feeling? It's not still hurting, is it?" "I'm not in pain. I got some painkillers. I can't believe I've had so many injuries recently. I'm starting to get scared of living alone. There might be days when Tom can't come like today." Tom comforted his mother, Evelyn, saying, "It's okay, it's just a streak of bad luck." For a while, Evelyn pretended to cry softly. Then, she looked up and gave me a big smile. "I'm really glad we're living together. I'm sorry for being such a burden. I'll try to help around the house as much as I can, but it's tough with one hand. Nancy, please don't be mad, okay?" "No, it's okay. I'm just glad your injury isn't serious." I managed to respond, though I suspected Evelyn didn't feel sorry at all. However, I couldn't leave an injured person alone, so I continued to take care of her. Her hand injury wasn't severe. She could manage most household chores and daily activities without lifting heavy things or moving her hand too much. Despite this, it seemed Evelyn got used to letting me handle everything. "Nancy, about today's dinner, I don't want anything greasy. And please, nothing that needs to be cut with a knife and fork, it tires my hand. I'd prefer something I can eat with a spoon. How about beef stew?" "That's great. Oh, Tom got paid the day before yesterday. Let's splurge on some high-grade meat." "That's not good for our budget. I'm not asking to use just expensive meat. Just a little bit for flavor. Besides, it's good to have nutrition regularly in case you get pregnant." "Well, if you don't plan on that, then never mind." She continued to make unreasonable demands and subtly jabbed at me with her words. These conversations happened daily, and I could feel my mental energy draining. But being in a cohabiting situation, I couldn't afford to be thrown out of the house. I wondered if Evelyn had suggested living together to block my escape routes. Such a terrifying thought made me shake it off repeatedly. Despite our strained mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship, I decided to endure at least until her injury healed. And so, I stayed silent, not wanting to cause any trouble. 3 years passed since our marriage. Even after her arm healed, Evelyn kept saying, "The pain is still there. I can't even carry shopping bags from the supermarket." And she began to slack off on chores she initially helped with. Yet, she complained about the cleaning and cooking I did and rushed me about having children, maintaining a cold attitude towards me. Tom seemed completely unaware of these conversations, as Evelyn never mentioned them to him. I couldn't break our cohabitation at the in-laws' house, and my stress kept piling up. However, I became immune to her snide remarks and adept at dodging her probing questions. Evelyn must have been frustrated with my attitude. One day, an incident happened that clearly showed her growing discontent. When we returned home from work, Tom and I were shocked to find the house drastically changed. My belongings from the second-floor room, clothes, bags, furniture like my bed, and books had all vanished. It wasn't ransacked by a thief. It looked as if movers had come specifically to this room and cleared it out.
What's going on?
Tom was clearly astonished and frantically searched the other rooms, the yard, and even the neighborhood. I checked the closet, but not even a single lipstick was left. I was so drained that I just sat down. Soon, Tom came back, making a racket, carrying 2 or 3 garbage bags stuffed with clothes and bags. Realizing they were all my belongings, I screamed.
My clothes! Why?
There's more, the bedding, the dresser, all dumped at the garbage disposal area. I recognized some of your clothes, so I knew. Let's go check it out together later. Apparently, everything that was in my room until this morning had been dumped there. I wondered who could have done this, but the only person who could freely enter and leave the house besides us was Evelyn, my mother-in-law. Tom, too, had turned pale at the thought, but then, with a determined look, he stood up, grabbed one of the garbage bags full of stuff, and stormed into her room on the first floor. When he confronted her, asking if she knew anything, Evelyn coolly confessed, "I did it."
Mom, why would you do something that's practically throwing Nancy out?
Huh. Ask yourself that.
What nonsense are you talking about?
Tom scolded her, but Evelyn slammed both hands on the table with a loud bang, making both of us flinch.
Do you even understand what you've been doing these past 3 years?
At that moment, Tom quickly stepped in front of me, perhaps thinking she was going to lunge at me. She was glaring at me with hatred in her eyes, over Tom's shoulder.
I'm asking whose fault it is that you can't have kids. You keep deceiving with talks about plans and considering, but you never really intend to have children. A foolish daughter-in-law and a fraud who can't even have kids.
Tom stood between me and Evelyn, protecting me from her. But it was clear from his profile that he was shaking at her sudden change. Realizing that her gathering and disposing of my belongings was truly meant to drive me out, frustration welled up in me, overshadowing my sadness. I had never imagined that enduring her tactless sarcasm every day for these 3 years would lead to this. Evelyn pointed at me accusingly, her face filled with rage.
A daughter-in-law who can't produce grandchildren is no use to my son. Just go back to the countryside.
Suddenly, Evelyn stood up and tried to push past Tom to grab me.
Mom, stop!
Tom managed to hold her back, but she was screaming, "Talk. I'll make that foolish daughter-in-law understand." Despite being slim and weak, her determination was frightening. Tom, while restraining her to avoid injury, instructed me to take your stuff and get out. I hurriedly stood up, grabbed a few garbage bags, and rolled out of the house. Evelyn's screams of "Liar! Shameless woman!" echoed behind me. Tom somehow calmed his mother down and left the house to join me. We got a room at a nearby reasonable hotel to discuss our future. Seeing Evelyn's drastically changed behavior, Tom was slumped on the bed, completely drained. What's happened to Mom? I felt bad for Tom, who was so tired, but I had finally made up my mind. I opened up about everything Evelyn had done to me, rushing me about having kids before our marriage, the constant sarcasm, and her actions without hiding anything. It was hard for me to tell such things to my husband, who I knew cared about his family. But after hearing everything, Tom, with tears in his eyes, apologized. "I'm sorry I didn't notice.
The reason you didn't consult me sooner was my job, right? I'm sorry for making you worry so much. I wanted to spare you any trouble with Mom, but without realizing it, I've been relying on Nancy too much. It's not like that. I regret not talking about your mom sooner. If I had started the conversation earlier, maybe things could have been better. Anyway, I'm on Nancy's side, not Mom's. Please believe that.
My husband and I held hands and spent the entire night discussing our future. Then, we collect the belongings from the garbage disposal area before the garbage collectors arrive. Since we had no place to store them, Tom got a referral from a friend who runs a rental storage facility, and we moved our large items like furniture there. From those, we only picked up what we needed for our hotel stay. We had no intention of returning to the in-laws' house, so we spent a few days living in the hotel. The next day, we started looking for a new place to live, using our paid time off and finding a rental in between work commitments. Finally, Tom and I managed to sign a lease and went to the municipal office for the necessary procedures. After all these steps, about 2 weeks later, we visited the in-laws' house to inform Evelyn. We weren't allowed inside the house and had our conversation at the entrance without even taking off our shoes. Unfortunately, Tom and I have decided to divorce. Evelyn, who had been glaring at me as if I were filth, suddenly opened her eyes wide and smiled in delight when I handed her the official document showing that the divorce had been processed. We had chosen to separate. Next to me, Tom looked dejected. Evelyn, now in a creepy high-pitched laugh, said to her son, "I'll find you a nice woman." Honestly, men of all ages never end their troubles with women. But this time, Mom will help you. I'll find you someone much better than this country girl. With a wicked laugh like a witch, she finished her business and went inside the house, leaving us outside. Tom stayed behind at his parents' house, while I planned to move my belongings to my new place. Tom and I exchanged a look and parted ways there. Time passed, and it was the first New Year since our divorce. Suddenly, an agitated call from Evelyn came in.
What's the meaning of this postcard? It's a New Year's card.
A New Year's card?
It says you had a baby. What's going on?
Evelyn was flustered, lacking even the usual New Year's greetings. Over the phone, she ranted rapidly before screeching.
Why is Tom's name on it? You two are divorced.
The New Year's card sent to the in-laws' house had a picture. A couple holding a baby wrapped in a blanket. Of course, I was the one holding the baby, and standing next to me was my husband, Tom. Since the names on the card were ours, it was clear that the man next to me was not someone who just resembled Evelyn's son. From her perspective, the son and daughter-in-law she thought were divorced were living together, and the daughter-in-law she believed to be infertile had a child, a completely baffling situation. Soon after the supposed divorce, Tom had told her he was going on a solo assignment. The plan was to divert Evelyn's attention a bit longer, but he couldn't stand her daily matchmaking attempts and left, saying he'd marry a younger woman once his work settled. Surprisingly, she was convinced by that. The solo assignment was a lie. Tom was actually moving into my new place. We had found a spacious family-type home to live together as a family, and I had already furnished it before he joined. So, we quickly returned to our normal life, like our early days of marriage, without Evelyn. Then, Tom married into my family, as it were, and we remarried. Hence, the New Year's card bore my maiden name. The address was my parents' house, which I had discussed and agreed upon with them. We had no intention of disclosing our real address. The baby I was holding was indeed our beloved daughter. Just before Evelyn, my mother-in-law, drove me out, I was feeling unwell and went to the doctor, where it was discovered I was pregnant. Tom had suggested, maybe it's time we start thinking about having a child. And fortunately, we were successful. After sharing the joyous news with Tom, he proposed.
We should tell Mom too. It's her first grandchild, she'll be so happy.
At that time, Tom was still unaware of Evelyn's true nature. I couldn't help but look worried and quickly told him I wanted to tell her myself. However, right after that, the incident of being driven out of the in-laws' house occurred, and I lost the chance to tell her. Tom was so protective of me because I was pregnant. Feeling frightened by Evelyn's drastic change, we decided not to inform her of the pregnancy, thinking about the safety of me and our child. Furthermore, a shocking truth was revealed when we checked the belongings Evelyn had tried to discard. Among my personal items, there were a few smaller high-end bags and pieces of jewelry, luxury items for special occasions. All these valuable items were missing from the trash. Suspicious, we inquired at nearby recycling shops and found out that all the high-end items had been sold for cash. Evelyn hadn't just thrown away my belongings. She had selectively taken the expensive items and pocketed the money from their sale. Tom was utterly disillusioned with her greediness. We need to show her a tough lesson. We decided, keeping everything to ourselves and resolving to cut ties with her. Afterward, we arranged for an apartment, went through the divorce proceedings. All the while, Evelyn was completely deceived, unaware of the truth until today. Surprisingly, when she heard, she clapped her hands and rejoiced. Evelyn, who had driven me out in her desire for a grandchild, seemed to forget years of terrible treatment and urged me, "Come back home."
Being a son-in-law is okay, it's still my grandchild after all.
I'm sorry, but we have no intention of letting you meet our child. We just wanted to let you know that the baby was born safely, so please don't contact us anymore.
What nonsense are you talking about? Come and show your face, won't you? Tom is there, right?
Evelyn started shouting on the phone. When Tom came to the phone, Evelyn's attitude changed completely, trying to sweet-talk him. Nancy is being terrible, isn't she? Misunderstandings between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law happen in every family. I'm saying I forgive her, so bring the grandchild and come back home soon. I've hurt my back now and can't move. However, Tom wasn't fooled and responded flatly, "Huh. You said your arm was hurting till just before the divorce because of the injury, but you could carry a heavy dresser downstairs and to the garbage disposal area, so a little back pain shouldn't be a problem, right?" His cold retort silenced Evelyn. He continued,
"We know you've been lying a lot. I can't trust you anymore. I don't want to see you or meet you. We've moved far away. Please don't try to find us. We don't want our child to meet you, ever. We don't want to raise them to be a liar or a thief." Thief! Tom, what kind of way is that to speak to your mother?
Evelyn shrieked, probably confused about how to argue back. I interjected without missing a beat.
You cashed in my bags and necklace without permission, right? I could report that as theft. Even family members can be punished for that. I've already consulted a lawyer.
Her silence on the other end of the line indicated she understood she couldn't escape. Indeed, we had already contacted a lawyer, who confirmed it could be considered theft. Among the sold items were irreplaceable heirlooms from my deceased grandmother and my wedding ring. While we couldn't get those items back, we managed to get Evelyn to agree to pay damages instead of reporting her to the police. Through our lawyer, we understood a little of why Evelyn was so desperate for a grandchild. She had been envious of her peers at her part-time job, who always boasted about their grandchildren. Evelyn's part-time job apparently had a pretty harsh female hierarchy, and even with her strong personality, she was constantly competing as part of it. Moreover, trying to keep up with another wealthy colleague, she secretly bought designer goods, leading to financial strain. I figured I wouldn't get caught if I did it while throwing stuff away. She said, explaining why she sold my personal items. Her selfish actions left her estranged and alone in the end. Later, she actually fell down the stairs and got injured. Since living alone became difficult, she decided to stay with relatives of her late husband. Having moved out, she was able to quit her part-time job, but she's still at an age where she can work plenty. Yet, she complains at her relative's home, saying, "I can't stand working with those annoying old women again," and is treated like a nuisance by everyone there. Even though her injury has healed, she still owes a substantial amount in damages. I think her concern should be less about workplace relations and more about the need to work longer hours. And given her personality, it's easy to imagine she'll have a hard time finding a new job. At one point, Tom, our daughter, and I visited my parents' home. My parents were overjoyed with their adorable granddaughter, showing a level of affection I'd never seen before. Despite the divorce and son-in-law issues we caused, my parents were always supportive of us, even from afar. Having a strong family behind us was probably what allowed Tom and me to stand up to Evelyn. As spring approached, Tom's hard work paid off and he finally got promoted. After returning from maternity leave, I plan to get a qualification and try for a promotion too. Our lovely daughter is growing up healthy and fast. We've finally achieved peaceful and fulfilling days. I've been on the receiving end of verbal abuse from my stepson, Alex, who is my husband Mark's child from a previous marriage. I've kept it to myself, not wanting to upset Mark. One day, when I flew back to my hometown, Mark got stuck at work and couldn't pick me up, so Alex came instead. But when he arrived at the airport, his response to my thanks was harsh.
"I just can't do this." "What?" "Just seeing your face makes me sick. Breathing the same air as you feel like it could lead to a disaster. And the idea of my car smelling like an old lady, no way."
He taunted me with a smirk.
"If you buy me a new car, I might let you ride. But you don't have that kind of money, do you? You're just a parasite living off my dad."
Grinning, Alex continued.
"Parasites like you can't ride in my car. Walk home, it's only a 3-hour walk."
"All right." As Alex walked away, I felt a wave of anger. "Watch out. You'll see what happens when you mock me. I'm Emily, a housewife who married Mark, a colleague, 10 years ago. We met when I transferred from the accounting department to sales administration, where Mark worked. We grew close working together and he proposed 2 years later. It was like a dream, but I didn't answer right away. It is because Mark was a widower and a single father with a young son, Alex. He had been raising Alex with the help of his parents. I carefully tried to bond with Alex by having meals together and going to amusement parks and animated movies. Alex was a quiet and unfriendly kid. It was hard to believe that such a cold and aloof child was the child of gentle and generous Mark. But I knew it must be hard for a boy at his age to warm up to a new mom. I decided to think, if Alex rejects me, we'll drop the talk of marriage. Surprisingly, Alex accepted me. "I don't dislike my new mom," he said shyly. So, Mark and I got married, and the three of us started our life together. Little did I know, problems were just around the corner. After a while, Mark hesitantly asked me,
"Emily, would it be too hard to switch to part-time work?"
"Why?"
"Well, Alex has been feeling lonely in the evenings. He wants you to come home earlier."
I knew that before we got married since Mark had told me that Alex had stopped going to school recently. He would participate in events but otherwise stayed at home. Alex never answered the reason. Neither Alex's friend nor anyone else could answer Mark's question. Mark and I read books about truancy and attended lectures, trying to figure out how to be supportive parents. We secretly hoped he'd go back to school, even after starting middle school.
"The hardest part is for him. I hope he can go back to school soon,"
I was told by Mark, and we decided to watch over him warmly together. That's when Mark suggested I work part-time. So, I talked to my workplace and shifted from full-time to part-time. Maybe Alex felt left out being home alone, I thought. But then, Alex's attitude towards me changed drastically. It seemed like he waited for me to come home just to complain.
"What's with today's lunch? Just leftovers and microwave meals? Isn't it normal to cook from scratch?" "I'm sorry, I didn't have time." "Oh, I'll make your lunchbox, the same one with mine. You can just heat it up."
"Look, another shortcut. You could just come home during your lunch break and cook. I want fresh meals." As I struggled to respond, Alex smirked at me maliciously.
"A mother should be able to do at least that." "All right, I got it."
It takes 40 minutes to drive back and forth to work. My lunch break is just an hour. Even if I wake up early to prep, I end up with no time to eat my own lunch if I cook for him. Yet, I continued to sacrifice my break time to make Alex's lunch, hoping to make him happy. But instead of appreciating it, Alex frequently criticized me.
Can't you make the fried rice fluffier? It's nothing like the restaurants.
Well, they are professionals, after all. Alex overheard and scolded me.
There you go, making excuses again. Dad has to work to earn money, but you're just living off him. If you can't do the household chores properly, what are you good for? Sorry, you're right.
Alex's smug smile widened. He also nitpicked over the cleaning and laundry, following me around as I vacuumed, making a fuss over a single hair on the floor or a slight wrinkle on a shirt.
Is this how you think you're doing housework? Dad's too kind, but you're just slacking off. Do it properly.
I bit my lip. Despite never lifting a finger to help, all he did was complain. As I stayed silent, Alex frowned in annoyance.
What's with that look? If you have a problem, tell Dad. I'll make sure he knows you're verbally abusing me.
When it was just the two of us, Alex would act arrogantly, but in front of Mark, he'd play the hypocrite. He never dared to behave like this in front of his father. Quiet and gentle? Far from it. Alex was mean-spirited and twisted. My dislike for him grew stronger every day. I worried about his future with such a character, then I realized something. Alex's tone was just like my in-laws. They've disliked me since the beginning of our marriage. I remember once, when we dined out with them, I gently corrected Alex for eating loudly. After the dining finished, Mark left for the restroom. Once Mark left, my in-laws lashed out at me.
You're just Mark's wife, not Alex's mother. How dare you scold him? You're a century too early to give opinions to Mark and Alex. Just silently take care of them.
I still remember how Alex smirked beside his yelling grandmother. After Alex's mother passed away, my in-laws often came over to take care of young Alex instead of busy Mark. It was inevitable that he absorbed their views. I wondered if he spoke harshly to his friends too. Was his inability to fit in at school the reason he couldn't attend? My suspicions grew, but then I discovered a shocking truth. Alex wasn't unable to go to school. He didn't go because he didn't want to. I realized this when I overheard a conversation between Alex and his friend. I had come home early from work due to a fever. Although I had come home early from work due to a fever, I decided to make Alex's lunch, so I made pancakes and salad and delivered them to his room. As I was about to knock on his door, I heard him through it.
While the others are bored in class, I'm leveling up and getting stronger. Gotta grab the best items.
I listened as Alex laughed.
I'm gonna ask Dad for a new game console and the latest game release. He thinks I'm distracting myself from the sadness of not going to school with games. Hilarious, right? I skip school because I want to play games. What an idiot.
Unaware that I was listening, Alex cheerfully continued the conversation.
My mom? She's convenient for doing chores. And when I'm annoyed, I can take it out on her. Lucky she married into this family.
I felt dizzy. Thinking back, Alex's room was always filled with the sounds of video games. I couldn't believe Alex was skipping school just to play video games. Mark had set a daily limit on his gaming time. So, by the time Mark gets home, Alex is always watching TV in the living room, pretending to be keeping his promise on the surface. It must be because his grandparents let him play games as much as he wanted from a young age. When I burst into Alex's room, he looked startled and hurriedly hung up the phone.
Don't eavesdrop.
I tried to stay calm as I spoke to him.
Why don't you tell the truth? Mark is really worried about you. He thinks something happened at school.
Alex glared at me.
Leave me alone. Dad's just too serious about everything. He'd definitely forbid gaming.
If you won't tell him, I will. Angry, Alex suddenly seemed to get an idea, smirking at me. He fiddled with his phone and then showed it to me triumphantly.
Think you can go against me? I'll tell Dad you're cheating on him.
I was taken aback by what appeared on the screen. It showed a scene of me having dinner with a male acquaintance at a high-end restaurant.
I followed you secretly the other day.
You were meeting your lover, weren't you? I quickly thought it through. If Alex showed this to Mark and shared his thoughts, it seemed likely to create a rift between father and son.
I haven't betrayed Mark. Liar. I see through everything.
I sighed and shrugged.
Fine. I won't tell him. But you should, when you get the chance. Tell him you don't want to go to school, not that you can't.
But my words seemed to have no effect on Alex. Since then, his rudeness only escalated. He either blatantly ignored me or showered me with sarcastic remarks. After Alex entered middle school, his attitude towards me became exclusively one of two things.
You only know how to do housework, parasite. You married Dad for his money, right? Women have it easy. Just charm a rich guy, get married, and then you can live leisurely. Cheating on Dad with his money, that's the lowest. Ever think about who's providing for this house?
When Alex entered middle school, we sold our apartment and moved to a suburban house. I hoped that his temper would mellow out a bit, but my expectations were disappointed. After all, he hardly went to school and ended up studying at an online high school. After graduating, he didn't get a regular job. He just took occasional part-time work when he felt like it. I had tried hard to bond with Alex early in our marriage, but I eventually gave up. I learned to ignore his insults when Mark wasn't around. One day, Mark came home from work and mentioned,
Alex wants to get his driver's license. I told him to save up his part-time earnings for it. Maybe having a goal will motivate him to work harder. He might even get a regular job once he's used to working.
A few days after this hopeful conversation, my MIL arrived unannounced, grinning as she told Mark,
I took care of the driving school enrollment for Alex. What? Once he gets his license, I'll buy him a new car. It'll be fun. Don't make decisions like that. I told him he had to pay for it with his part-time earnings.
Mark, unusually agitated, was met with a nonchalant response from his mother.
Alex needs our help, his salary isn't much. It's only right to support him.
Mark, perhaps thinking it futile, stopped protesting further. As expected, Alex didn't work and instead went to driving school. After getting his license, he had his grandmother buy him a foreign car, which he used to drive around and boast to his friends. Like Mark, I lost the will to advise either my MIL or Alex, secretly just hoping he wouldn't cause any accidents. When I was accustomed to Alex's driving, I flew to my hometown to attend a friend's wedding. The next day, while on my way back by plane, I received a message from Mark.
Sorry. A mistake by one of my subordinates came up, and I have to work overtime. I don't know what time I'll be able to come home.
I'm not good at driving. I had always asked Mark for a ride because I wasn't confident about making the round trip to and from the downtown airport.
It's okay, I'll catch a taxi.
I replied.
It's too far to walk from the station to our house, especially after the last bus has gone.
Then Mark sent an unexpected response.
Alex will come to pick you up at the airport. You don't like taxis, right?
I hesitated for a moment. He's coming to pick me up? That's nice, but the idea of being alone in the car with him is suffocating.
Alex wants to show off his driving skills.
I chuckled softly. He does have his endearing moments.
Then maybe I'll take him up on his offer. That's a good idea. I'll let Alex know.
Shortly after, a message from Alex came through.
Wait in the lobby.
It was a curt message, but I was happy. Maybe this would be a chance to close the gap between us. Eventually, the plane landed at the airport. I collected my baggage and headed to the lobby, pulling my suitcase. When I saw Alex in the distance, I stood up.
Thank you for coming to get me.
As I thanked him, Alex smirked.
I just can't do this.
What? I asked cautiously.
Is it because you drive roughly or something? I'm bad at driving too, so it's okay.
No, you idiot. Alex twisted his mouth.
Just seeing your face makes me feel sick. Breathing the same air seems like it could cause an accident. And the idea of my precious car smelling like an old lady, no way.
As I looked confused, he continued. If you buy me a new car, I might let you ride. But you can't afford it, right? You're just a parasite living off my dad. Grinning, Alex added. Parasites like you can't ride. Walk home. It's only a 3-hour walk. I stared at Alex's face. It took a while to comprehend his words. Hey, did you get that? Is your brain okay? Yeah. Oh, and don't tell Dad. Just say you walked home for exercise. Maybe this will help you lose some weight. You should thank me. Laughing loudly, Alex walked away. As I watched his fading back, intense anger rose within me. I had been enduring this, not wanting to upset Mark or ruin their father-son relationship. But I've reached my limit. Just watch. He'll see what happens when he mocks me. Walking home for 3 hours in the middle of the night is too much. I don't like it, but I'll take a taxi home. About 10 minutes into my walk to the taxi stand, my phone rang. It was Alex. I ignored the call, but as soon as it went to voicemail, he called again. He kept calling persistently. The echoing ring in the empty hallway was so loud that I finally gave in and answered. Hello.
Don't ignore me, answer quickly.
What? If it's nothing, I'm hanging up.
What did you tell Dad?
Alex sounded almost hysterical. He must have really upset Mark. I just told him about your behavior.
You had no business doing that. Where are you?
On my way to the taxi stand.
Then wait there. I'm coming to pick you up.
No need to trouble yourself. Oh, you've hung up. I was uneasy about facing Alex again, but going home alone might make things worse. Reluctantly, I waited at the taxi stand, and this time, we went back together. Strangely, my FIL's car was in the parking lot. Why so late? I wondered, entering the house to find Mark greeting me at the entrance. His gentle smile was comforting. Welcome home, Emily. I'm back. Is my FIL here? I called my parents. I know you're tired, but after you've put your suitcase in the bedroom and changed, could you come to the living room? I want to have a family meeting with them. Mark's serious face conveyed his firm resolve. I left my suitcase in the bedroom, changed, and headed to the living room where my in-laws were waiting. Right off the bat, my MAL started yelling.
Why call elderly parents at this hour? Surely Emily told you to do this. Such a poorly mannered DIL.
Exactly. There are better choices at work. Why did you marry someone like her, Mark? How long are you going to be under her thumb? My in-laws' insults made Mark's face darken. They had always behaved themselves in front of Mark. This was the first time they openly badmouthed me in his presence. Stop speaking ill of Emily. Mark said, his voice restrained, staring down his parents. I'm sorry for calling you so late, but I needed to talk tonight. Facing Alex and my in-laws, Mark and I sat on the sofa, beginning to talk with stern expressions. I asked Alex to pick Emily up from the airport, and he readily agreed. But then he said, Emily's taking a taxi home.
She really said that?
I called Emily, and she said she was left at the airport. Is that what you're upset about? My MIL laughed, shrugging. She should have just walked home. She'd have made it by morning. Exactly. She's just a DIL. Who does she think she is asking for a pickup? Alex and my in-laws exchanged nods, but Mark's eyes narrowed. He calmly placed his phone on the living room table and spoke firmly.
The real issue is this image Emily sent me.
My in-laws and Alex looked at the phone and instantly paled.
When did you?
Alex looked at his grandparents begging for help, but my in-laws just turned their faces away, remaining silent. Displayed on Mark's phone were messages between Alex and my in-laws. Alex, I heard from Mark you can't go to school. Are you unwell somewhere?
Grandpa, Grandma, don't worry. I'm not going to school not because I can't, but because I don't want to. I mean, if I go to school, I can't play games, right? Well, that's it then. We thought Alex was just sensitive and found it hard to be with noisy teachers and friends. Don't tell Dad, okay? And, I want to spend money on games, but my allowance isn't enough.
Would $20,000 be enough for now? I'll transfer it to your account without letting Mark know.
It's natural for a child to play. That's fine. Just relax at home as much as you want. Thanks, you guys really understand. Grandpa, Grandma, thanks a lot.
Mark, with a furious expression, and the silent in-laws and Alex listened as I explained. A few years ago, I saw this displayed on Alex's phone when he left it in the living room. I took a photo thinking of consulting Mark, but it was hard to bring up, so I just kept it.
I was just a kid, so I didn't put a lock on it. It's the worst to sneak a look at someone's phone. Exactly. What a senseless deal. Who's the unreasonable one here?
Mark shouted. With a look of indignation and frustration, he glared at his parents.
Why would you give Alex such a large sum of money without consulting me?
Well, he said to keep it a secret from you. The in-laws sulked. Giving a little pocket money to a grandchild is fine, right? That's not the point. The issue is the daughter-in-law snooping on Alex's phone. She's a stranger. I fought back against my outraged in-laws, my words laced with anger.
Oh, really? Then let's report Alex to the police for borrowing money without permission from a stranger. What?
I operated my phone again and showed them a different image. It was a credit card statement I had previously photographed. Alex was the only one showing panic among the puzzled faces.
$10,000 for game charges? Emily, what is this?
Yes.
That's the money Alex borrowed from me without permission. Nonsense! Alex wouldn't do such a thing.
My MAL exclaimed, then covered her mouth in haste. Seeing Alex's pale face, it seemed they realized the truth.
I was shocked when I checked my account balance and found it almost empty.
I shrugged my shoulders.
The statement showed it was all used for game content. Alex, you registered my card number for your online game payments without permission.
We usually use Emily's card for household electronics. It's in the drawer of the bedroom with the PIN written down so I can use it immediately, as I tend to forget the numbers. Mark added.
I never thought Alex would use it without permission. And why would you do such a thing when it's obviously going to be discovered? It's not a big deal, we're family.
Alex yelled in frustration. The in-laws joined in. What's wrong with giving $10,000?
It's nothing.
Yeah, why does a daughter-in-law have to make such a fuss?
You spoil Alex by letting him get away with everything. That's why he's become so self-centered.
Mark raised his voice. He stood up impatiently, glaring at his parents and Alex.
I appreciate you looking after Alex when I was busy with work. But it's wrong to give him lots of money and let him do whatever he wants. Alex, aren't you going to show any remorse for using your parents' money?
The in-laws and Alex exchanged glances, their lips pursed in dissatisfaction.
It's unfair to be criticized for spoiling our grandson. If there's a problem with Alex's upbringing, it's the mother's fault. Children learn by watching their mother. The DIL's upbringing is inadequate. Exactly, Emily, take responsibility.
Pointed at by my FIL, I was speechless. My anger turned into laughter. There was nothing but to do so.
Is it my responsibility, then?
But it's true, isn't it? Suddenly, I noticed Mark's eyes glaring fiercely, his fists clenched in anger.
Both of you always have so much to say. Emily married me, a man with a child, on her first marriage. Do you know what kind of resolve she had to come into this family?
Mark.
Everyone should be more grateful to Emily.
Then, Alex, who had been silent with his mouth turned down at the corners, suddenly looked up as if he had an idea. With a smirking face, he addressed Mark.
Dad, you really trust this Emily, huh? Of course.
Annoyed, Mark responded, and Alex, with a full smile, proclaimed.
This woman, she's been cheating. Yeah, maybe she still is. What? Cheating? I knew it, I had a feeling. Such a worthless woman.
The in-laws became excited.
Do you have proof? Of course. Just wait.
As Mark frowned skeptically, Alex scrolled through his phone, hurrying to find the so-called proof.
Ah, found it.
Let's see. The in-laws peered eagerly at the screen. Alex, sitting back smugly and with a look of triumph, declared confidently.
I'm smart, so I kept the photo from that time.
Good job, Alex. Michael condescendingly addressed Mark.
You see now? Get rid of such a woman. If you need a wife just for housekeeping, you can find another. That's right. She should be grateful just to be in this house, but instead, she's acting like a mother. So annoying. Yeah. You're living off Dad and yet have the nerve to cheat, shameless.
Alex joined in angrily.
Dad, you really lack judgment. Next time you marry, find someone younger, prettier, and more obedient.
50-something, ordinary-looking, and sorry for being defiant. My anger boiled.
So, get out, cheating woman. This is mine and Dad's house.
I'm not cheating. I looked up at Mark, who seemed to understand and nodded. Peering at Alex's phone, then meeting my gaze, Mark sighed deeply.
Alex, you followed Emily? Yeah. She dressed up and went out, not acting her age. It was a yearly dinner with a friend. Right, cheating with a man. A what?
Confused, Alex and the in-laws looked at Mark, who wore a stern expression.
December 20th, at the restaurant near the station. An old friend of mine, who works abroad, comes home for Christmas, so we eat together every year. He's been my friend for years and Emily's college classmate.
It's only me and him in the photo, but Mark joined us after work. See, it's a table for 4.
Oh, it's true.
The in-laws scrutinized the phone screen, then glanced at Alex.
Seriously? I kind of remember this guy. He's Dad's friend?
Alex scratched his head and laughed it off. However, his complaints towards me didn't seem to end, and he pointed at me, hurling more insults.
But still, she's living off Dad's money, right? Dad's paying the house loan too.
Mael joined in.
That's right. And yet she acts so high and mighty. Who does she think she is? I've never once thought of her as a mother. I actually wanted to oppose the marriage, but she forced her way into our house.
No, you accepted me, and that's why we got married. What are you saying now?
It's obvious she married Mark for his money. Mark, wake up. You're being deceived.
Mark shrugged off his clinging mother and firmly stated.
Alex asked for her to come home early, so she switched to part-time work. Have you forgotten? Was that so? I feel guilty for leaving all the household work to Emily while I'm busy with work. And you, who hardly works and just plays games at home, have no right to say anything.
Mark glared sternly at Alex.
Thanks to Emily, we can live in this spacious house. Be grateful to her. What? This house was bought by Emily.
Alex's eyes widened.
What do you mean? When Alex was struggling with school and staying at home, Emily suggested moving to a suburban house from our apartment near the station, thinking you would be more comfortable.
Alex was speechless as Mark turned to him.
Emily asked me to keep it a secret, not wanting to make you uncomfortable. But I should have told you sooner.
Alex's face turned pale.
Technically, it's Emily's and my house, since I contribute to the expenses too. By the way, Alex, have you paid even a penny towards living expenses since you started working? Wait, you're not telling Alex to leave, are you?
The in-laws and Alex panicked.
Emily, the cheating thing was just a misunderstanding, and we didn't know this house was bought by you. Right, Alex? Yeah, if you bought it, I don't need to leave.
Alex smiled ingratiatingly at me. Let's forget about the past and get along, Mom. We're family, after all. Please forgive me. Looking forward to being with you. He smiled, trying to cozy up to me, but Mark finally lost his temper.
How dare you say such shameless things?
Mark's bellow made the in-laws and Alex tremble.
If you care so much about Alex, then live with him. I refuse to take care of him any longer. From today, I cut ties with you. Don't ever show your faces again. You're so cold-hearted, Mark. You used to be so kind, but you've completely changed because of your wife. A father, yet so heartless.
Mark glanced coldly at his lamenting in-laws.
All right. Alex, come live with us from today. We'll live together.
Thanks, Grandpa. Dad, you'll regret being so cold to your precious heir. Complaining, the in-laws and Alex left our house. Living with them, Alex's self-centeredness seemed to exasperate his elderly grandparents. Despite living with his elderly grandparents, Alex doesn't help with any household chores at all. Alex spends more time playing games than working, and when his part-time job earnings run out, he pesters his pension-living grandparents for pocket money.
Mark, maybe you should take Alex back? Parents should take care of their children. Our pension and savings are getting devoured by Alex. Please, take him back.
Later, the in-laws called Mark, begging him to take Alex back, but Mark immediately blocked their number. Half a year passed, and the $10,000 Alex had used from my account still hadn't been returned. When I contacted Alex, his response was astonishing.
We're family, so it's not a crime.
Don't you know that? It might not be a criminal offense, but I can sue you in civil court.
What?
You didn't know? If you don't pay, I'll take you to court. Perhaps scared by my threat, the next day $10,000 was deposited into my account. Of course, Alex didn't have that kind of money, so it seems his grandparents covered the cost for him. However, Alex had no intention of repaying them and continued to laze around at his parents' home without working. This caused even more strife between Alex and his grandparents. Recently, Alex and Raphael have been having big fights every day. Their quarrels have become so loud and frequent that the neighbors often call the police, and now the family is considered a nuisance in the neighborhood. A month after Mark kicked Alex out, Mark and I celebrated our 10th wedding anniversary at the restaurant where he had proposed, toasting with wine.
I'm sorry, Emily, for all the hardship. Mark, you're still apologizing? It's okay now.
Smiling, I reassured him, and Mark spoke in a soft tone.
I had an inkling that Alex and my parents didn't think highly of you. I optimistically thought they'd warm up to you eventually. I never imagined they'd hurl such terrible insults at you. Thanks to you standing up for me, I feel relieved. Thank you.
Mark immediately retorted as I expressed my gratitude with a smile.
Of course. I should have cut ties with them sooner. I wanted to get along with your family. It's a pity. What are you saying? You are much more important to me.
I was warmed by Mark's kind words and gentle smile. I felt grateful to be married to him. Though I never managed to connect with Alex and the in-laws, I resolved to continue growing old with Mark. You know, I really want kids, huh? You can't get pregnant, right?
If that's the case, I'll just remarry a younger woman and have kids with her.
I was stunned by these sudden words from my husband. Remarry a younger woman. What does that even mean? After all the effort I've put into treatment, was it all for nothing? I'm still in my early 30s, yet I have premature menopause. Sure, the chances of me getting pregnant are low. But I too have wanted children and have been seeing a doctor for various treatments, so his dismissive words hurt a lot. Even today, I came to the doctor with my husband, so he should know this.
Wait. Why are you saying this all of a sudden?
Sudden? It's not getting any better, is it? How long do I have to wait? Huh? I'm completely the villain in his eyes. I had told him about my premature menopause before we got married, and he married me knowing that. He doesn't need me anymore, does he? I couldn't say anything more to my husband. I felt our hearts had drifted apart and that anything I said would be in vain. I don't care about the treatment anymore. Let's go home. That's what I thought as I got up to leave. At that moment, my husband and I were called by the doctor. What's the matter? You can end my treatment after today. It's pointless to continue. What? You don't even need to look at the test results, do you? You know it's not my fault, right? I want to leave soon, it's a waste of time. Where should we go on a date today? I'm so relieved since the divorce. No need to sneak around for dates anymore, huh? It's hard to say this, but... The doctor began to speak slowly, looking not at me, but at my husband. My husband, his face pale and trembling, listened to the doctor's words. Seeing his reaction, I couldn't help but feel a sense of justice. My name is Nova. I'm turning 35 this year. 3 years ago, I married Theo, who was introduced to me by a mutual acquaintance. We were the same age and hit it off quickly because we shared the same hobbies. After meeting a few times, we were drawn to each other and started dating.
Sorry. I feel a bit sick.
Hey, are you okay? Don't push yourself and take a rest, all right? About a year into our relationship, I began to suffer from unexplained poor health. No matter how much I rested or watched my diet, I didn't get better. Working as a preschool teacher with frequent weekend shifts, I thought maybe I was just tired. I didn't take it very seriously. You should probably get that checked out by a doctor.
That's an exaggeration.
No, really, you get sick almost every month. It'd be great if it's nothing, but I'm worried. Please see a doctor. Well, if you insist. Hearing my husband's words, I felt a little anxious and decided to see a doctor. I was sure the doctor would just say, it's due to exhaustion. But the diagnosis was beyond my wildest expectations. You see, you have premature menopause.
Premature menopause?
It was a condition I wasn't familiar with, so I asked the doctor to explain. Do you know what menopause is? It typically occurs in older women, but in rare cases, young women like you can experience it too. I understood menopause. But what did menopause mean exactly? Does it mean I can't have children? I hesitantly asked the doctor.
I know about menopause, but, doctor, you mentioned something about menopause earlier. Does that mean I can't have children?
Well, yes, sort of. The doctor nodded to my question, looking somewhat uneasy. What a thing to hear. I had wanted to have children with him. I was overwhelmed with despair. There's still a possibility. If you continue with the treatment, the chances are low, but you might still be able to get pregnant, so let's not give up and continue the treatment.
Okay. I understand.
I left the hospital and headed home to Theo, who was waiting for me. What should I say to him? A woman like me, I wouldn't be surprised if he left me. I'm home. Welcome back. How did it go? Yeah.
Yeah? What do you mean, yeah? Was it that bad?
I guess I had no choice but to tell him the truth. I braced myself and decided to tell Theo everything. It's premature menopause.
Premature? What's that?
You know, like menopause. It can happen at my age. If I continue treatment, there's a chance, but it's hard to get pregnant right now.
What?
Theo fell silent after hearing my story. We had discussed our future, and now he knew I might not be able to have children. It's understandable he would react this way. You probably hate having a partner who can't have children. It's okay. I understand if you want to break up. As I told Theo my feelings with tears, he hugged me and said, Are you kidding? Break up over this? If we continue treatment, there might be a chance, right? I don't care if we can't have children. Let's get married. I never imagined he would propose at a time like this. He didn't abandon me.
Yes. I'd be honored.
At that moment, I must not have been a sight for the eyes. Touched by his kindness, my makeup must have been ruined by tears. After accepting his proposal, we met with both our families and got married. For my husband's sake, I was determined to continue treatment and try to have children. But the results were hard to come by.
Don't worry about it. Let's just keep up with the treatment, step by step.
Every time I returned from treatment, Theo always had kind words for me. I'm truly blessed to have such a good person in my life. Our married life, apart from my health issues, was going smoothly. Adding a child to our family would make us even happier, I thought. But life isn't always that sweet. And now, 3 years have passed since we got married. We still haven't been able to have a child. Maybe because of that, the once close relationship between my husband and me started feeling awkward. I'm going to the doctor today.
Okay.
Our conversations had become this brief. I wondered if my husband had lost interest in me. Maybe it wouldn't be surprising if he left me. Such thoughts had started to creep into my mind. One day, I decided to ask him directly what he thought about me. Hey. I still can't have children, right? What do you think? I broached the subject while we were having dinner, after Theo returned from work. My sudden question seemed to catch him off guard. He choked a bit, hastily swallowed his food with some tea, and then started speaking.
Why all of a sudden? You caught me off guard. So, what's up?
I mean, it's been 3 years since we got married, right? You wanted kids, didn't you? And yet, we still haven't had any. I was just wondering what you think about that.
I told you before we got married, didn't I? I'm not in a rush. It's fine even if we can't have kids.
It seems my feeling that he had become indifferent lately was just my misunderstanding. Theo reassured me with the same sentiment he had expressed before our marriage.
Oh, really? That's good to hear. Good to hear? What do you mean?
Well, I was starting to think maybe you'd leave me soon.
Don't think such silly things. Seriously, haha. Well, my mom has been nagging me about wanting to see grandchildren, so it would be great if we could have kids soon.
In the end, Theo joked and laughed. Thanks to him, my gloomy mood lifted. I was reminded once again how lucky I was to have married him. A week later. Like usual, I went to the doctor for my treatment. When will the treatment be over, and I'll be able to get pregnant? I couldn't help but ask my doctor directly. No matter how much Theo said not to rush, I was feeling anxious. Right now, he's waiting, hoping the treatment will allow me to get pregnant. And the treatment costs aren't small. With my health condition, I can't work full-time, and Theo, working as a factory worker, has an average income. Considering the financial burden on our household, I feel like our time is running out. That's something I can't exactly answer. It's mostly due to hormonal imbalances.
So, what now? You might want to consider having your husband come in for fertility treatment. My husband, you say?
Yes. Since there are no menstrual periods, it's necessary to continue your treatment, but it might be a good idea to also check if there's any fertility issue with your husband.
Okay, I'll talk to him about it.
At that time, I couldn't fully grasp what the doctor was saying. I knew the issue was with me, so why did my husband need to get tested? I didn't understand, but on my way home, I messaged Theo on WhatsApp.
The doctor said you should get tested too. Me? Why? I'm not quite sure, but they said it might be a good idea to get tested.
Okay, I'll go sometime. It seemed like Theo was thinking the same thing I was. It's only natural to wonder why you'd need to be suddenly tested. But, he agreed to go for the test, so that was the end of our WhatsApp conversation. 3 months passed. Though he said he would go for the test, Theo hadn't made any move to actually do it. He hadn't mentioned going for the test. I didn't want to force him, so I decided to wait until he was ready to go.
I'm gonna head to bed early tonight. All right. Good night.
After dinner, I wasn't feeling great, so I decided to go to bed early. I felt off. As I lay in bed, I felt a dull pain in my lower abdomen. Ouch! It was a pain I hadn't felt in a long time, but it was also familiar. Could it be? Hesitantly, I took off my pants and saw red on my underwear. Usually, getting my period would bring me down, but this time was different. Natural menstruation meant that my body was possibly returning to normal. Excited, I forgot all about feeling unwell and rushed down to the living room where Theo was.
What's the rush?
I got my period.
Huh?
Theo looked confused by my sudden outburst.
It means we might finally be able to have a child.
Oh, really? That's great. His reaction was somewhat lukewarm. After a nonchalant response, he went back to drinking his coffee and messing with his phone. Wait. He always said he wanted children, but that's it?
Well, that's it, but...
Yeah. You said you weren't feeling good, right? You should get some sleep. You don't want to get sick again. I went back to the bedroom, feeling a bit puzzled by his attitude. Was I the only one excited? Surely, it must be just how Theo is. Maybe Theo was just concerned about my health and didn't want to make a big fuss. Looking back, I was probably too optimistic. 3 more months went by. We've been intimate regularly, and my periods have continued without any irregularities since then. Still, I haven't been able to get pregnant.
I'm having my periods, so that means I can get pregnant, right?
Yes, you can.
Recently, we haven't been giving you any hormone treatments, and if it's a natural menstruation, then your body should be returning to normal.
But
But
I got the doctor's confirmation that I should be able to conceive. So why can't we have a child? Could it be? At that moment, I thought of Theo. I remembered the doctor suggesting he should get tested.
I mentioned earlier that it would be good for your husband to get tested. If you're back to normal and still not getting pregnant, there might be an issue with your husband. If you really want a child, it might be best for him to get tested.
Okay, I understand. I'll talk to him about getting tested right away. That day, when I got home, I told Theo that I could potentially get pregnant now and that the doctor said there might be an issue with him.
It's hard to say, but the doctor mentioned that you should really get tested. I already told you I'm gonna get tested.
Theo's expression turned visibly upset, perhaps because I brought up the testing again. But I couldn't back down now.
It's been 3 months since you said that. You said you wanted children with me, right? Was that a lie? My body's back to normal, and the doctor clearly said there might be an issue on your side.
Oops. I let my emotions get the better of me and almost blamed Theo.
So you're saying it's my fault? Okay, I got it.
Theo wasn't loud, but he was clearly upset. He left his dinner unfinished and seemed to be heading out.
Wait! That's not what I meant. It's not your fault. Just leave me alone. I've been patient till now, but I've had enough.
With those words, Theo left the living room. Bang! The sound of the front door closing echoed. It seemed like he had gone out. I messed up. After all the trouble I caused him, I got carried away and exploded in emotions, almost blaming him. I decided to apologize when he returned. I waited in the living room for him, but there was no sign of him coming back. It was already past 2 a.m. Maybe he won't return tonight. As I sat there, overcome with sleepiness, I eventually fell asleep on the living room sofa. When I woke up, it was already past 8 a.m. Oh, it's this late already? Rubbing my eyes, I saw a note left on the table.
I'll be coming home late from now on. Don't need dinner, and don't wait up for me.
We had never had anything like this before. Leaving a note instead of waking me must mean he's really angry. It must be about last night. Reading the note, I deeply regretted my actions. From that day on, our relationship took a turn for the worse. We hardly have any meaningful conversations when we see each other. When I try to talk to Theo, he only responds with yeah or a few words. This went on for half a year, and my body started to react weirdly again. Maybe it's the stress, but my period stopped. Not again. I'm so tired of this. Just when I thought things were getting better, it's like I'm back to square one. I had started to give up on the idea of having children. Then, on a certain day off, while we were both relaxing at home, Theo suddenly spoke to me. Hey.
What?
I was taken aback. When was the last time he initiated a conversation? I was so surprised that I made a weird sound.
I'll go for the test. Really?
I couldn't tell what had changed his mind. But Theo has finally agreed to get tested. I can't miss this opportunity. We arranged a date and went to the hospital together. On the day of the appointment, I went through my usual treatment while Theo got his tests done separately.
Well, I doubt there's anything wrong with me. I hope so.
After the tests and treatment, we sat in the waiting room for Theo's results. He seemed confident, almost as if he was trying to prove he was not at fault. Surely, the reason he agreed to get the test today is to prove that the issue isn't with him. After about 30 minutes, we were called into the doctor's office.
Thank you for waiting. No problem. I know what the results are going to be,
Theo said, unusually cheerful. I wondered what was going on. As I was pondering, Theo said something shocking. You know, I really want kids. You can't get pregnant, right?
If that's the case, I'll just remarry a younger woman and have kids with her, huh?
I was speechless at his sudden declaration. Sure, the chances of me getting pregnant are low. But there was a time when the doctor said I might be able to conceive. Maybe if we keep up with the treatment, I might get pregnant again.
Wait, why are you saying this all of a sudden?
Sudden? It's not getting any better, is it? I was being blamed for everything. I had told Theo about my premature menopause before we got married, and he married me knowing that. He doesn't need me anymore, does he? I couldn't say anything more to my husband. Seeing me speechless, Theo pulled out a piece of paper from his bag. Sign this. He handed me divorce papers. I was too stunned to comprehend. This was too sudden, and in front of the doctor, no less.
What is this?
I didn't tell you, but since we couldn't have kids for so long and it was getting annoying, I found someone new. I'm going to divorce you and marry her to have kids. That's why I'm telling you to sign this, huh? The other woman is young and doesn't have any health issues like you. Theo said this without a hint of remorse. Feeling that he had completely drifted away from me and that anything I said would be futile. I lost all interest in continuing the treatment. Let's just go home. As I stood up to leave, Theo and I were stopped by the doctor. What's the matter? You can end the treatment today. It's meaningless now. What? You know there's nothing wrong with me, right? I want to leave quickly, it's a waste of time. Where shall we go on a date today? I feel so relieved after the divorce. No need to sneak around for dates anymore, huh? It's hard to say this, but... The doctor started talking slowly, looking not at me, but at Theo. Hearing his words, Theo's face turned pale, and he trembled. I felt a sense of justice as I listened. Actually, according to your husband's test results, it seems the infertility issue lies with him.
What?
Look at these numbers. They show 0, don't they?
Yes, what about it?
I'll be blunt. Theo, you have azoospermia.
What's that?
Let me put it simply. You're infertile. I never thought the problem would actually be with Theo. All this time, I thought I was the one at fault. Theo was shocked by the unexpected diagnosis. Seeing Theo holding the diagnosis given by the doctor and trembling, it was clear that he was in considerable shock. You said Nova was the cause of the infertility, right? I've treated her many times, so I had a feeling the issue might be with you. Moreover, Nova can get pregnant any time now. Her recent lack of menstruation is just due to stress. I see,
So that's why you insisted on getting him tested.
Now I understood why the doctor had been insisting on Theo getting tested.
No way! I'm infertile? That's ridiculous.
It's not a lie. The test results show it. Would you like a retest? I think it will be the same.
No.
Theo mumbled to himself and staggered out of the doctor's office.
Is what you said about Theo's results true? Yes, it's definitely true. I initially thought to discuss it with your husband alone, but when I saw him handing you that divorce paper for such a terrible reason, I couldn't help but tell you in front of him because I got annoyed at him.
The doctor smiled a little as he said this. It must have been his way of showing kindness. I thanked the doctor and followed Theo. After a 30-minute journey home, Theo apologized deeply as soon as we entered the house.
I'm sorry. For what? I didn't think the problem was with me. I'm truly sorry. It doesn't matter anymore. So, about the divorce, can we cancel it?
No matter how much he apologized, I couldn't forgive him for wanting to leave me. And signing the divorce papers, it's too selfish to cancel it now.
What? That's impossible, obviously. I do feel sorry that we couldn't have children because of my health. But you were the one who said it was okay and proposed marriage, right? I made it clear, didn't I? I said it was fine if you wanted to leave me. And yet, you couldn't bear it and went off to have an affair? Don't take me for granted. I'll break it off with her.
The moment after Theo spoke, my right hand had found his cheek. Slap. A dry sound echoed in the room.
Don't mess with me. Enough is enough. What are you doing? I can't do this anymore with you. I don't care if you marry a younger woman and have kids. I'm definitely getting a divorce.
Saying that, I immediately started packing my things. I couldn't stand another second with him. The thought that he had been kind to me only to cover up his affair made me nauseous. Throughout my packing, Theo kept apologizing, but I ignored him. In less than 20 minutes, my packing was done.
That's it, then. Thanks for everything. Wait. Think it over. It's going to be tough without me, right? You don't have an income.
I can manage my own earnings just fine. His concern is the last thing I need. I took off my wedding ring from my left hand and threw it at him.
Oh, worried about me? But I have a childcare license, I won't have trouble finding a job. And I can earn enough for one person. Here's your ring back. Bye, Mr. Infertile.
Just before I left, I saw Theo slumping to the ground, powerless. Serves him right. This is what happens when you selfishly start an affair. Now that he knows he's infertile, I wonder if his mistress will still marry him. Well, it doesn't matter to me. I just hope he suffers. With that thought, I submitted the divorce papers at the town hall and went back to my parents' home. 3 months later, I had rejoined a local nursery as a childcare worker, supporting myself. I never spent lavishly, so earning for one person was easily manageable. Learning from the past, I kept my workload moderate and was living a peaceful life. One day, on my day off, while I was relaxing at home, the doorbell suddenly rang. My parents were out. Who could it be? Did Mom order something? I responded without checking who it was on the monitor, which turned out to be a mistake. Hello? When I opened the door, there stood my father-in-law and ex-husband Theo. I was stunned by their sudden visit.
I'm really sorry about what my foolish son has done.
After a moment of silence, my father-in-law started talking. It seemed he had heard from Theo that we were divorced.
No. You don't have to apologize for him. Apparently, this guy, he was having an affair, unbelievable. Hey! Apologize to her.
Theo's face was swollen and pained, as if he had already been thoroughly scolded by his father.
Really? I'm sorry.
My father-in-law didn't have to go that far. Besides, if the neighbors see this, it might start some weird rumors. I understood my father-in-law's feelings, so I decided to ask them to leave.
Father-in-law, it's okay now, considering the neighbor's eyes.
I'm sorry for not being considerate. Here, it's not much, but... My father-in-law handed me an envelope. Inside was $60,000.
What's this?
Just a small apology. Please take it.
No! I can't accept such a large sum.
Please, it's all right. I insist. I won't feel at ease unless you take it. And this money is compensation for what Theo has done. I'll collect it from him. Just think of it as a repayment. If that's the case. I felt hesitant about taking my father-in-law's money, but if it's being collected from Theo, I might as well accept it. Although it wasn't my intention, I thought my father-in-law might stay until I accepted it, so I gratefully received the cash.
Well, then. I'll accept it for now. Thank you.
Don't mention it. So, we'll be leaving now. Nova, is there anything you'd like to say to Theo before we go? Something to say. Prompted by my father-in-law, I told Theo one last thing.
I never want to see you again. Don't come to this house, okay? If you do, I'll call the police. Be happy with someone new. Okay.
With that, Theo was led away by his father-in-law. I've caused trouble for my father-in-law too. I really hope Theo reflects on his actions. But knowing him, he probably won't. He only thinks about himself. I hope his life never goes well again. He deserves that much punishment. After seeing them off, I went back to relaxing in my living room. Half a year passed, and Theo never came to the house. The warning about calling the police must have worked. When I had almost forgotten about Theo, a WhatsApp message arrived. Oh no. I forgot to block his contact. I didn't plan to reply and thought of deleting it, but curiosity got the better of me, and I checked the message. Nova, I'm really sorry for everything. I regret what I did. When I told the new woman about being infertile, she cut contact, and it fizzled out. I'm disowned by my family, and the relatives all know I can't have descendants. They call me Mr. Infertile behind my back. Even at work, they know about the affair and the divorce. I'm pointed at every day. My life is a mess. Are you doing well? If you ever forgive me, let's have dinner again. I'll be waiting for your contact. I read the message from Theo, then deleted it without replying. Of course, I blocked his contact and set my phone to reject his calls. So, he's disowned by his family too. Considering my father-in-law's anger, it's not surprising. It's satisfying to know he's living in the hell he deserves. It's too late for regrets. There's no way he'll be forgiven. Fool. Muttering to myself, I went back to my interrupted chores. My health has improved significantly. If I ever get married again, I hope to have children this time. That's my wish.
Get out of here, you fake mother.
The words blindsided me, leaving me utterly shocked. After 13 years of loving Sophia as my own daughter, hearing such words from her seemed inevitable, yet it stung. Her desperate expression and the way she pointed at me made it clear she wanted nothing more than for me to leave. Seeing that look on her face, I couldn't even ask why. I decided to silently comply and leave. Dodging the concerned glances of those around me, I walked away slowly. I found a bench just outside the venue and sat down quietly. Mulling over the words Sophia had hurled at me, my shoulders slumped in defeat. How had it come to this? Reflecting deeply, I realized I hadn't been there for her when it truly mattered. Since I'm not her biological mother, Sophia's words were justified. As I was about to give up hope, a jolt of shock went through me. Just as I was about to turn around, thinking something had happened, I heard Sophia's voice, on the verge of tears.
Sorry. The truth is.
The shocking revelation that followed left me at a loss for words. My name is Amelia Smith, a 48-year-old CEO. I have a daughter named Sophia, though she is not my biological child. When I married her father, Ethan, who had been her sole parent, Sophia became my daughter. I met Ethan when I was still an employee. One day after work, as I was doing some grocery shopping, I came across someone who had dropped their wallet. It was Ethan, and I quickly picked it up and called out to him. "Excuse me, you dropped your wallet."
"Ah, yes. Thank you so much."
He took it back from me with a genuine smile and invited me for tea as a thanks. Despite holding my shopping bags, I was charmed by his smile and nodded in agreement. Surprisingly, our time over tea flew by, and it felt wonderful. Ethan, suddenly aware of the time, hurriedly prepared to leave. "Sorry for holding you up. My daughter is waiting for me, so I need to go. But, if it's all right with you, I'd love to chat again." With that, he scribbled his contact information from his planner and left in a rush. As I chuckled to myself about the whirlwind encounter and paid for my groceries, I realized Ethan had already taken care of the bill. It was a memorable way to begin our relationship. After several dates, I got to know more about Ethan. He was a single father. His previous marriage ended because his wife fell ill. He worked tirelessly to provide for Sophia, who was 10 at the time. As I learned more about his life, I found myself drawn to him, and he felt the same way about me. As our relationship deepened, Ethan proposed, and I immediately accepted. However, there were several concerns for me to consider. I had quit my job to pursue a lifelong dream. At the beginning of our relationship, it was the only stable aspect of my life. Ethan, knowing this, still chose to propose to me. During our time together, I would sometimes play with Sophia. She was a bright and energetic girl who thoroughly enjoyed our playtimes. She often hugged me spontaneously, clinging to me fondly. Sophia was outspoken and prone to surprising comments. "Hey, Amelia, when are you and Dad gonna get married?" Out of the blue, Sophia's comment had us staring at each other in surprise. Though I accepted a marriage proposal after such an event, there were naturally obstacles. It was when I had gone to report to my parents about the marriage by myself before greeting them with Ethan. Originally, Ethan was supposed to come with me to say hello, but he ended up having to go on a business trip at the last minute and couldn't make it. Having no other option, I tried to reschedule, but he insisted that I should go first alone. "I'm really sorry. If you go and greet them once on your own, I think it will go more smoothly when I accompany you the next time. So, I hate to ask, but please send my regards to your parents." At the time, I didn't think much of it, but I was strongly opposed at that point. I was unilaterally scolded and my parents were indignant, calling Ethan insincere. However, I understand why my parents were worried. I had just started a dream company of mine, and my income wasn't stable yet. Moreover, while this was my first marriage, Ethan was divorced. And the fact that he had a child meant that their concern was quite predictable. Yet, I was able to convince my parents and somehow got their understanding. When we went for the marriage greeting again, my parents welcomed us warmly. They were my parents, who truly wished for my happiness. A few years had passed since our marriage. Although Sophia was included and the three of us spent such fun times together, things gradually started to fall apart. The cause was on me, but it still made me feel lonely. My work, thankfully, had been going well since I married Ethan. But due to that, I became busy, and when I got home, I was just barely managing to finish the chores. I couldn't create time for Sophia, and maybe that's why we've grown apart emotionally. If so, at least I wish Ethan could make time for Sophia, but I couldn't bring myself to insist on it. I know that Ethan is busy with work as well, and it just doesn't sit right with me to leave everything to him and set myself aside. I tried asking Ethan, but I just got a frown and a lecture. "I'm worried about Sophia, too, you know? But work is busy, and you understand that, right?" It felt like he was telling me not to blame myself too much, and that made me a bit miffed. This became the cause of a fight, and I was aware that our marital relationship had cooled down. However, instead of fixing it, I escaped into my work. Plus, with Sophia now being in junior high and squarely in the midst of puberty. She wasn't at home often, and the crucial me being absent created a distance between us. When I wake up and say hello in the morning, I get nothing more than a light nod, and I haven't heard her voice for a long time. When she leaves for school, I say, "Have a good day," but she just smiles ambiguously and doesn't respond. By the time Sophia gets home, I'm off to work, and dinner is just something made ahead that she heats up. Moreover, Ethan works late too, so Sophia is probably eating alone. Since I've let such a lifestyle go on, it's only natural that distance has grown between us, given we aren't biologically related. Before marrying Ethan, we used to have such fun times, but now they're almost non-existent. Ethan, despite being Sophia's biological dad, seems disinterested and his responses are curt. About my own work and Ethan's work. I've tried discussing how Sophia might be sad about my business demands and Ethan's work situation, but I only get laughter in response. And still, he comes home late from work and doesn't try to engage with anything at home or with Sophia. Thinking it's not good for Sophia for this to continue, I tried my best to make time for her. To reduce the time I spent at the company, I even tried bringing work home. If there was a school event, I tried to adjust my work schedule to make myself available. Sadly, unexpected appointments or unavoidably important tasks meant that things didn't always go as planned. Maybe Sophia too grew tired of my attempts. The emotional distance that was already there might have widened further. Now, she leaves for school while I'm still getting ready in the morning, and at night, she returns to her room before I get back. She began avoiding me, so I couldn't be involved in things like parent-teacher meeting, school festivals, or her graduation ceremonies. It stayed this way even as Sophia became a high schooler. By the time my company settled down, Sophia was already in college and about ready to graduate. During those disheartening times, finally, as Sophia was graduating from college, she approached me on her own accord. "Mom, I have something I want to talk to you about." Hearing Sophia's voice after such a long time nearly moved me to tears. However, I couldn't listen to her story if I was crying, so I mustered a smile and faced her. "What's up, sweetie? You know you can tell me anything about what's going on with you." Despite everything that happened before and knowing that her trust might be shaky, I wanted to do anything for Sophia's sake. While I was half excited and half scared about what she would say next, Sophia dropped a bombshell. "Mom, I want to get married. There's someone I love." I felt as if time had stopped. I certainly wasn't expecting to hear such news. Even though I knew Sophia was at that age, the thought of her having a boyfriend had never crossed my mind. I was totally unprepared for marriage talks instead of simply hearing about a boyfriend. Seeing the worried look on Sophia's face brought me back to reality, and from there, we had a long, deep conversation. I caught up on all the things I hadn't been able to hear before, all the memories Sophia could recall. I listened intently to her hardships, as well as the happy and joyful things she experienced. After hearing everything, even about her fiancé, I eagerly offered to help out. "Sophia, let me help you since I haven't been able to do much up until now. Is the venue for the wedding decided? Do you have a place to live after the wedding? Tell me if there's anything you're unsure about or anxious over. I'll make sure it's a wonderful ceremony." When I said this, Sophia broke down in tears. Embracing Sophia as she nodded repeatedly through her tears, I conveyed my sincerest congratulations from the bottom of my heart. From that point on, I was busier than when I had started my company. I juggled work while helping with the wedding preparations, and I even met her fiancé at her introduction. The fiancé seemed like a very sincere and kind person, and upon first sight, I felt a deep sense of relief. I thought that he would love Sophia abundantly, making up for the times she felt lonely. As the preparations progressed, I learned that there was supposed to be a family introduction. But it seemed that it was called off, and I never got the chance to greet the fiancé's parents. However, I didn't worry too much since I assumed we would meet properly on the wedding day. On the day of the wedding, I had some unavoidable work and arrived late to the venue, only to be told I was not allowed in as I was an outsider. Protesting desperately, I claimed to be the mother of the bride, Sophia. However, they told me that her mother was already there, and I was left utterly confused. Just when I thought I'd be turned away at the door, Sophia, dressed in the gown we had chosen together, ran up to me. Just as I thought I would finally be let in, a shocking statement hit my ears.
Fake mother, leave immediately.
Stunned by those words suddenly thrown at me, I realized it was not surprising. Sophia, whom I had cherished as my own daughter for 13 years, was telling me this. It was inevitable. Seeing Sophia's desperate expression, pointing at me, indicating she wanted me out no matter what, I resolved to silently comply without asking for a reason. Navigating through the sympathetic gazes of the bystanders, I slowly left the scene. Feeling utterly shocked, I walked on shaky legs until I found myself outside the premises of the wedding venue. How I got there was a blur, but more pressing was the feeling of utter desolation. My spine was cold, my mood was heavy, sweat broke out, and I felt miserable. With these feelings weighing me down, I found a bench and decided to take a rest. Until not long ago, it felt like all the past was a lie, and I had been spending time with Sophia. And I had thought I was finally going to be part of a significant event in Sophia's life. The words fake mother that Sophia hurled at me were stuck in my head and wouldn't budge. Indeed, I wasn't Sophia's real mother. A distance had grown between us since middle school, and I had used work as an excuse not to get deeply involved. Was it because we had misunderstood each other for so long? Sophia had approached me upon her marriage, and I wondered where I had gone wrong. Sitting on the bench, these thoughts went around and around in my head. There was still time before Sophia's ceremony began. Should I try to talk to her again? Or is it better to just go home now? I'd love to catch a glimpse of Sophia, even from a distance, just to see her looking happy and smiling. But maybe that's not going to happen. From a little ways off, I could hear the sound of a bus. Looking around, I realized that the bench I was sitting on was at a bus stop. Perfect. I'll just get on this bus and head home. Just as I was about to stand up, a jolt went through my back. Turning around, thinking something had happened, I heard Sophia's voice, sounding like she was about to cry.
I'm sorry. Actually.
The shocking truth I heard next left me speechless for a while. I'm really sorry about earlier. I wasn't planning on saying anything, but when I saw your face, I just couldn't hold it in. It'll be a bit long, but can you hear me out? Of course, sweetheart. You've been holding it in for so long. I'm so sorry I didn't notice. Please, tell me everything. As I said this, Sophia started to speak slowly. What she told me was just as shocking as the words she'd said before, and all I could do was listen. The first thing she talked about was the meeting of both families that had been cancelled. Initially, she'd been told they would inform her when it was scheduled, but it ended up not happening. However, apparently, the meeting did happen, and Sophia was waiting with her fiancé's family for us. Ethan arrived a bit late and brought with him a woman who looked familiar. It turned out to be Amiri, his ex-wife, and naturally, both Sophia and her fiancé were very surprised. But Ethan hurried through the meeting, and before they knew it, it was over. It seems that the fiancé's parents recognized Amiri as the mother, and things continued unresolved until today. In addition, Sophia told me other astonishing things about Ethan. They used to live as a family of 3, but Amiri incurred debts, making their life difficult. Unable to endure such a life, Ethan divorced Amiri, taking Sophia with him. Unable to make ends meet on his own, he wanted to find someone who could financially support Sophia. That person turned out to be me. However, soon after marrying me, Ethan began dating Amiri again behind my back. Then I was busy with the new company. At that time, Sophia, being only 10, didn't understand the situation. But as she grew into her teens, she became aware of the truth, and felt terribly guilty. She was distant because she couldn't find the courage to tell me what was going on. Sophia apologized, crying, and explained much more. I couldn't catch up with my head, but I couldn't help feeling sorry for Sophia, who had been feeling crushed until now. Thinking about how Sophia suffered because of the selfish actions of Ethan and Amiri made me incredibly angry. Why should Sophia have to suffer so much instead of them? When I thought of that, I felt very painful. When she finished, I decided to accept everything for now. It's not that I had no thoughts on the matter, but those weren't directed at Sophia. If I vented now, that would only make Sophia blame herself even more. I cupped Sophia's tear-streaked cheeks in my hands and smiled warmly at her.
I'm sorry for not realizing anything until now. But I'm really glad you told me. Thank you for trusting me despite the pain you've been through.
At my words, Sophia's eyes welled up and she started to cry uncontrollably. The bus had left without us, and I held Sophia gently, waiting for her tears to abate. When she finally calmed down, I asked her one question. Sophia, why did you say those things to me at that time?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. Hey, calm down, okay? I'm not blaming you. I heard everything you just told me, but I was just wondering why you said what you did.
Hearing this, Sophia seemed relieved and took a deep breath. But then her face hardened, and she shared the true intent behind her words at that time. Like at the family meeting, she was at the venue before you, Mom. She's not my mother anymore, but acts like she owns the place, so nobody questions her. It's partly my fault, but you didn't know about the meeting, and I didn't want you to see her. I panicked. I chose the worst possible way to handle it. I'm so sorry.
It's all right. Don't worry about it. It's okay, I'm not angry.
I replied, soothing Sophia with a gentle stroke on her back. Even though today should be a day of celebration, I couldn't forgive Ethan and Amiri for putting my daughter through this. While suppressing the anger welling within me, I made sure Sophia got to the dressing room. I checked the time on my smartphone, and there was still a while before the ceremony started. Sophia would have time to stop crying and reapply her makeup. Her dress might have gotten a bit dirty, but it would be cleaned in no time. Right now, my focus was on dealing with Ethan and Amiri, who were likely looking forward to enjoying the wedding at the venue. I was filled with those thoughts. As I was considering what to do about the two, it seemed that the ceremony had ended. The reception was about to start, and I thought this was my chance, so I made my way into the venue. Earlier, when I had dropped Sophia off at the dressing room, I made sure the venue staff understood I was the real mother. This time I was let in without dispute. Upon entering, I saw Ethan and who I assumed was Amiri and started walking towards them. Noticing me, Ethan went pale and hurried over.
What's going on? You're late. The ceremony is already over. Was work holding you up? You could have at least called. Isn't there something else you should be saying? Of course, I'd also like to know why a stranger is sitting in the seat reserved for the bride's parents.
I said, my voice tense at Ethan's clumsy words, loud enough for the groom's parents and the entire venue to hear. The murmurs began, and people started glancing over curiously. With their attention, I explained the situation to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today at my daughter's wedding reception. But as you've overheard, that woman making herself comfortable is no longer Sophia's mother. She is actually Ethan's ex-wife from 13 years ago, and she is still involved with my husband. And terrifyingly, I was nearly prevented from witnessing my daughter's happiest day. The room erupted in murmurs. Now the gazes turned to Ethan and Amiri, who began to stammer a defense.
That's nonsense. I was waiting for you to come. But since you weren't showing up, I didn't think it was right to have the mother's seat empty, so I asked her. That's all. Yeah, that's right. If you claim to be her mother, why haven't you shown your face until now? They say you're busy with work. How could you not make time for your own daughter's big day?
Amiri joined in, eliciting more noise from the crowd. This probably made them think that I'd neglected my daughter for work. But I had my say. Unfortunately, my work ended before the ceremony began. It's my daughter's big day, of course I'd planned to be on time. But when I arrived at the venue, I was almost turned away at the gate. What was the reason again? Oh right, they said the mother had already arrived, asking who I was exactly. You impersonated Sophia's mother to keep me out, didn't you?
You didn't show up. I was just asked to pretend to be the mother. It's not my fault.
Amiri protested, which was my cue to argue further, but then the doors burst open, and Sophia strode in with forceful steps.
Stop lying. The one telling lies here is you. Don't ruin my wedding any further.
The room buzzed at Sophia's declaration. She stood firmly in front of me, then turned to face Aithani and Amiri.
You divorced my dad when I was 10. You hadn't shown your face once since then, but then you casually showed up at the family meeting. Why did you tell my future in-laws that you are my mother?
Sophia then turned to apologize to her in-laws.
I'm terribly sorry for being silent till now. To take responsibility for everything, the engagement will be annulled. And I assure you, any expenses will be fully reimbursed. Please forgive us. Wait a minute, you're calling off the wedding? Don't make such a decision lightly, Sophia.
Aithan, suddenly arguing against the cancellation, appeared genuinely fretful. Even Amiri was nodding seriously beside him. Looking at Sophia's face for clarity, even she seemed confused and distressed.
Your fiancé is wealthy, isn't he? This means we can benefit too, right? Then, your real mother can pay off her debts and come back. Isn't that a dream come true?
The crowd's frowns deepened at Aithan's justification. Was this his plan all along, marrying me for financial gain? No, Sophia chose her own partner, so it couldn't have been the plan from the start. But his participation with Amiri in the family meeting under the pretense that she was the mother meant exactly that. If they convinced the in-laws that Amiri was the mother, they might be persuaded to offer financial help. They were probably aiming for such an outcome with their actions, but blurting it out here, what were they thinking? It seemed Amiri had the same thought and, in a panic, she began yanking on Aithan's arm and scolding him. I couldn't hear what she said, but Aithan instantly paled, covering his mouth and looking back at us. But it was too late to put on an act. The in-laws were furious. What ensued was a heated argument between Aithan, Amiri, and the in-laws.
I'm her real mother. I'm the one who bore her and brought her into this world.
Her claim was countered by the mother-in-law. She doesn't have your temperament, which is probably for the best since her upbringing was superior.
She is my child. Amelia has been too busy with her work to bother much with Sophia.
Sophia immediately retorted. I've been avoiding you because I felt so guilty about how shamefully you were behaving, Dad. I consider Amelia my real mom, and I don't want to claim you, pointing at Amiri, as my mother. She said this with a definitive shake of her head, pointing her finger at Amiri with clear disdain. This prompted Sophia's prospective father-in-law to interject.
We don't want to be relatives with someone who's just after our money for a wedding.
He spoke with a sharp tone, to which Amiri replied defiantly.
When I introduced myself as her real mother, you accepted it. Therefore, there's nothing wrong, and my claim stands.
She said I need the money to pay off debts. The groom then erupted in anger, his face becoming stern. I only want to be with Sophia. I can't manage the burden of both of you. The situation was getting out of hand until the mother-in-law put an end to it. We will call off the wedding immediately.
This matter is settled, let's disperse.
She declared definitively, leaving us no room to argue, and we had no choice but to comply. Defying Aithan's desperate attempts to cling on, the groom's family returned to the dressing room. Aithan and his group, left behind, glared at me resentfully.
I can't do anything about those looks. You deceived not just me but many others, focusing only on yourselves. As a result, you've caused Sophia nothing but pain, and this consequence is only to be expected.
I told Aithan and Amiri before taking Sophia by the hand to apologize to the groom's family. Upon reaching the dressing room, the groom's family greeted us with evident anger. However, after Sophia and I sincerely apologized, they turned to listen to our side of the story. Thankful, Sophia and I recounted everything, apologizing again. They understood and even sympathized with us. They decided not to leave things as they were and gave Ethan and his group one last chance. Settling matters in the heat of the moment wouldn't be constructive. Although what Sophia and I had said was true, we had another round of listening to Ethan's claims. Shortly after that, we managed, with a little persuasion, to have the venue staff set up a meeting to discuss the issue. The groom's family had said they'd like a calm discussion, but once faced with Ethan and his group, they were uncompromising. First, they asked Ethan to clarify his previous statements, which he had to do. Ethan thanked this as an opportunity and started talking about something different from what he had said earlier, which made things difficult. Admittedly, Amelia has taken good care of Sophia, but surely it's better for her to be with her real mother. If Sophia marries your son, her life will be stable, and then we can use the money to pay back Amiri's debts. The thing is, you mentioned earlier about benefiting from us. Was that your intention, to make use of Sophia to get us to pay for the debts? You're now contradicting yourself. You're just trying to sweet-talk us. Are we right to understand it that way? The in-laws pressed, and Ethan, unable to reply, received a scolding in silence. When Amiri was asked to explain her previous outburst, she also twisted her story. Indeed, I have debts, but it's for medical bills. I have never gambled, please believe that. So if Sophia marries your son, I can repay what I owe, that was my thought. With both Ethan and Amiri saying these things, it was pretty clear they were trying to ingratiate themselves. The in-laws, having given them a chance, were now sitting with furrowed brows in silence. However, Amiri seemed to misinterpret this as an opportunity and continued with her self-centered narrative. I had tried to stay out of it, but her claims were just too self-absorbed to remain silent.
My debts aren't because of gambling. I fell ill shortly after giving birth to Sophia. My health declined rapidly, which led to an extended hospital stay. Of course, medical bills piled up, and I had to raise Sophia. It was incredibly difficult.
Why didn't you ask your parents for help if the debt was for postnatal medical expenses? Isn't it common to seek assistance from your own family rather than expecting help from your in-laws, like you're dealing with easy marks just waiting to be taken advantage of? I blurted out, unable to hold back, and Amiri's face contorted with anger. Unfortunately, her argument about the debt being for medical expenses didn't stand a chance. Sophia had confided in me that her debts were from gambling and splurging on designer goods. Even if she could deceive the groom's family, I wasn't about to let that stand. Just as Amiri shot me a withering glare, the mother-in-law stood up, clearly done with the discussion. It's time to put an end to this argument. As for what happens now, you'll be taking care of the wedding expenses that have been incurred. Upon hearing this, Amiri immediately turned to me, jerking her chin defiantly toward the mother-in-law and blurted out. See, you're supposed to bear the costs. It was you who messed up the wedding, so you should pay. It's not my fault. I was just asked to do it. The self-serving claims continued from Amiri, and now it was the groom who lost his temper.
Amelia did nothing wrong. In fact, she's an important person whom we will respect if we're to marry again.
Sophia and I were dumbfounded, exchanging glances before looking to the groom's family. They responded by giving us a wink and a warm smile, unlike Amiri, who was none too pleased. Ethan, raising his head with a hint of greed.
Perhaps Amelia can remain as Sophia's mother, but I am, and will always be, her father. It's only natural that I'm included in the family too.
I simply shook my head slowly at Ethan's outburst. To his puzzled expression, I firmly declared. Don't just say what suits you.
Did you think I wouldn't take action? I'm going to file for divorce. And if you really dislike that idea that much, then we'll involve our attorneys and settle it formally.
As soon as these words left my mouth, Ethan's energy deflated, and he fell silent. Not wanting to miss this chance, the mother-in-law promptly added her bit.
If Amelia insists on this course of action, then we as well will take legal action against Amiri.
Amiri, now truly outmatched, silently nodded in acceptance of the mother-in-law's claim. But we weren't going to settle for mere verbal promises. Written contracts were drawn up for each party. Reluctantly compliant, Ethan and Amiri watched our interactions in silence until the end. And with the conclusion of firm boundaries being set, the gathering disbanded. I got home before Ethan and hurried to pack up. Fortunately, having a car meant I could just stuff it with whatever I could for the moment. Then, before Ethan returned, I left the house and drove. I head straight to the government office, get divorce papers, and look for a lawyer's office. I quickly found a reliable attorney and decided to consult with them. With the divorce papers half written, I left them with the lawyer, blocked Ethan's number. I wrote him a letter stating to contact me through the attorney from now on, which I sent along with the papers. Although it took some time, the signed divorce papers eventually made their way back to me. Ethan's section was duly filled in, and all that was left was for me to submit them to the city hall. The lawyer told me it was quite a struggle to get to this point. Ethan had vigorously protested, repeatedly trying to see me and causing quite a bother at the firm. Thanks to the lawyer's patient persuasion, however, Ethan finally relented and signed the documents. Through this process, Ethan's parents, my former in-laws, were informed of the situation. He was then disowned by them and told not to return home. Despite having a wedding bill to pay off, Ethan had indeed fallen on hard times. As for Amiri, of course, she was charged with the wedding costs by the groom's family. My claim for alimony made her situation even more precarious. She had been working part-time, but it wasn't enough to cover her repayments. The necessity to juggle multiple jobs meant that she now had no time for gambling. From my perspective, it seemed like a positive development, but for Amiri, it was a living nightmare. She looked quite worn out, but that was none of my concern. With all the hustle and bustle, finding a new place had been put on the back burner, but then Sophia called. She had arranged a place to stay until I found a new home. It might feel a bit cramped, but I was about to move in with Sophia and her fiancé at their place. I bought some housewarming gifts and made my way to meet them. Everything progressed smoothly from there, and I was able to divorce Ethan successfully. Despite the upheaval, work and Sophia's upcoming marriage were all going well, and we were now preparing for the wedding once again. I never expected to plan 2 weddings because of this turn of events, but someday, I'm sure we'll look back on this and laugh. Hoping for that to happen, I worked hard at work and wished for Sophia's happiness. You guys are having an affair, aren't you? I've heard that affairs are common among older couples, but I never thought there would be such fools doing that so close to home. An affair? Do you have any proof? I do. Mom took some photos. This is a mess. True. Well, it's probably for the best. If we've been caught, no use crying over spilled milk. Hey, bring it here. I, Talia, in collaboration with my mother, had caught my sister and my husband in their affair. I intended to confront them with the evidence, but the situation took an unexpected turn. Sign on the divorce papers. I've already filled in my part. Hurry up and sign. If you do it now, we can file them first thing tomorrow. Are we really getting a divorce? Over an affair? I'll pay whatever it takes. After all, I plan to inherit all of Mom's estate. What? The whole estate? You mean the money Dad left for Mom? In front of our mother, my sister began discussing the inheritance. Seemingly not wanting to witness any more conflict between her daughters, our mother agreed to her elder daughter's demands. Fine, I won't leave a will. You can have all the money. Is that okay? Exactly. Just give me the money. Even if you tried to prevent it, I could easily claim my inheritance rights. Your mother agreed to your demands. Now, sign the divorce papers. Once I signed the divorce papers, my husband happily snatched them off the table, and he and my sister left the house together. My mother promised to give all of the money her husband had left her to my sister, and I signed the divorce papers. Later, my sister and my husband disappeared from their lives as if they had eloped. Mom, was this the right thing to do? It's fine. Just wait and see. My mother reassured her. 2 years later, after my mother passed away, my sister and ex-husband who hadn't shown up to the funeral came to the house. As promised, I, the eldest daughter, will inherit everything. There's no money for you.
What?
My sister exclaimed, only 2 seconds after looking at my face. I was ready to execute the plan I had inherited from my mother. I am Talia, a 47-year-old office worker. My husband, Riley, worked as a security guard, often having weekdays off. With my weekends free, we struggled to find time together in the past. However, as our marriage approached my 50s, I found the mismatched days off more comfortable. It's not that I dislike my husband, but being together all the time can be exhausting. For the past decade, that's how I felt, but recently my perspective changed. Our daughter had played a buffer role between us, but she graduated from college, got a job, and moved out. Now, with just the two of us at home, we spoke less. It wasn't that our relationship worsened. But being with my husband felt strangely embarrassing. With our daughter out of the house, maybe it's not a bad idea to restart our married life with fresh feelings. I was starting to feel a bit excited about this new phase in our married life, but then a small problem arose. I'm reaching my limit here. Her rheumatism is getting worse and she's advancing in age.
You should have moved here sooner.
It couldn't be helped. Mom didn't want to leave her hometown. But now she's accepted the move, realizing she can't be stubborn anymore. I was worried about my mother's health, but relieved to hear she had agreed to move. My mom, Yasmin, and my sister, Callie, had been living together. Despite her old age and some illnesses, my mother was still managing her daily life. Callie, being a nurse, had been a great comfort, taking care of our mother. However, as our mother aged and with Callie working, it was getting harder for her to support our mother alone. We'd been discussing this issue for years, and I had suggested they move closer to me. It would allow me to help with our mother's care, and moving from the countryside to our town would be more convenient for them. Reluctant at first to leave the house she had lived in for so long, she finally agreed to move this year, now at the age of 78.
This place is convenient. There's a supermarket just a 5-minute walk from home. I wish we'd moved here sooner. Don't walk to the supermarket with your bad leg. If you need something, just ask someone, or I'll drive you there.
6 months later, my mother and sister moved near my house. Callie found a new job and seemed to be adjusting well to her new life. Mom, initially sad to leave her hometown, now seemed more lively living in the city. According to Callie, she was more energetic than when living in the countryside.
Seeing her this energetic, maybe we didn't need to move after all. Well, moving is a big ordeal and expensive too. Don't worry about the money. Remember, Mom had. Right, I forgot. No need to worry about that.
Seeing our mother bustling around the house, the sound of her slippers tapping brought smiles to our faces. Our father passed away 25 years ago. A workaholic who had held an important position in his company, leaving an estate worth a little over $1 million. Normally, this inheritance would have been split between my mother, Callie, and me, but due to his constant work and the burden of his illness, he left everything to our mother in his will. Callie and I were just starting our careers then, 22 and 24 years old, and he probably thought it wasn't wise to hand over such a large sum to us at that age. We had our own incomes and knew our parents had supported each other throughout their lives, so we didn't object. However, even with the $1 million, she continued to live frugally.
Come on, let's go to the supermarket before they run out of the sale detergent. We can buy up to 3 per person, so we need to hurry. It's not like the supermarkets in the countryside, they won't run out that quickly.
My mother urged, ready to leave with the ad in her hand. She, determined to save $1 on detergent, looked as serious as if she were heading into battle. Living mostly on her pension, she hardly touched the money left by our father. She used it only for necessities, like the recent move, so most of the $1 million was probably still intact. Likely intended for Callie and me. Mom always put us first, and it was evident in her actions. We wished she would use the money for herself, but it was her choice, a gift from our father, and we had no right to dictate how she should use it. Plus, given the amount, it was hard for us to intervene. So, I made it a point not to comment on how she used her money. Callie seemed to feel the same way about not discussing money matters with Mom.
Did Yasmin ask for anything specific to be bought?
Actually, she mentioned we're running low on bread. Could you pick up the usual?
The usual, like a bag?
My husband Riley asked leisurely, sipping his coffee while I was busy getting ready for work. It was a weekday, and while I had to head out, Riley was off work. As a result, it was unavoidable that I was the only one rushing to prepare for work, but I couldn't help feeling irritated at my husband, who was leisurely sipping coffee and fiddling with his smartphone, even though I knew it was unreasonable. I have to admit, I'm grateful for Riley's help. I can only visit Mom on weekends, and although Callie, being a nurse, often has weekdays off, she can't always be with Mom. Riley has stepped up to help. This means that throughout the week, one of us, either me, Callie, or Riley, is with Mom. It wasn't my idea, Riley himself suggested it.
You're always visiting Yasmin on weekends, but what about weekdays? Callie's there, isn't she? But she works, right? She can't be with Yasmin all the time. Well, Callie's probably with her 1 or 2 days during the week. Then Yasmin is alone for 3 days a week? That's not good. I have weekdays off. I'll go over it.
Riley asked me for all the details on how to support Mom. Despite what he might think, Mom is quite healthy. And with Callie being a nurse, we're prepared for emergencies. Therefore, there wasn't really a need for my husband to help with supporting my mother. However, I appreciate that Riley willingly offered to help, especially when many people are reluctant to care for aging parents. His eagerness made me explain everything in great detail. Everything was going smoothly after Mom's move. But slowly, the situation started shifting in an unexpected direction. One weekend, with both Riley and Callie at work, I headed to Mom's house as usual, only to find it strangely quiet. Huh? Is nobody here? Mom wasn't responding to the doorbell. Callie was at work, but it was unusual for Mom to be out. I considered the possibility of her being on a walk, but also worried something might have happened inside the house. As I was about to call Callie, Mom returned.
Oh, sorry, I'm a bit late. Have you been waiting? No, I wasn't waiting, but what's all this? Can't you tell? I went shopping. But those bags aren't from the supermarket, and you've got heavy stuff like cabbage. I could have gotten them for you.
I need to do it myself sometimes. It's good exercise. Mom insisted, visibly more bent over than usual due to the fatigue from carrying heavy bags. I took the heavy shopping bags from her, feeling their weight. After letting us in, I set the bags down and immediately asked what was going on.
Why did you go shopping alone?
I told you, I went for some exercise.
Exercise? But you bought so much.
I got a little carried away. It's been a while since I went shopping by myself.
Is there anything else you need?
Well, I couldn't carry milk because it was too heavy. I also chipped a bowl while washing dishes the other day, so I need a new one. And my reading glasses are bent, so I want to go to the optician. And she started listing off things she needed and places she had to go, one after another. It seemed too much to remember, so she pulled out a note from her pocket.
Oh, right. I also want to go to the hardware store and the post office. And I need to visit the bank.
She continued, reading from her note. The piece of paper, torn from a postcard-sized notepad, was densely filled with writing on both sides. I took a look at the note she showed me.
It's so full. I have to write everything down or I'll forget. Maybe I'm starting to get dementia?
Don't be silly. Hey, this electric blanket at the top of the list, didn't you mention wanting to buy it last Sunday? Didn't Callie or Riley get it for you this week?
Oh. I put it off because I asked them for so many other things.
She quickly snatched the note back from me and put it in her pocket. Feeling something was off, I decided to wait for my sister, Callie, to return home to discuss it.
Mom seems to be piling up things she wants us to do, filling up her notes. Do you know anything about it? Really? What did Mom say? She said she's just forgetful and needs to write detailed notes. Well, if that's what she said, then maybe it's true. Just the other day, she was in the kitchen wondering why she was there. I don't think it's anything to worry about.
Callie reassured me with a laugh, suggesting I was worrying too much. Considering Callie has been living with Mom and is a nurse, her reassurance should have been enough for me. I told myself I was just being overly anxious and decided to head home. But I couldn't shake my concern about Mom, so I discussed it with my husband, Riley, just in case.
Could it be dementia?
Callie said it's not.
If Callie says it's okay, then it probably is. You worry too much.
Riley agreed with Callie. As my husband said, since Callie assured that everything was fine, it must indeed be all right. I tried to convince myself there was no issue, just like Callie and Riley, despite the nagging thoughts in my mind. However, my uneasy feeling about Mom grew stronger. The following week, I found her cleaning the bathroom.
What are you doing? What do you mean? I'm cleaning the bathroom. Is that strange? It's not strange, but...
True, cleaning one's own bathroom wasn't odd. But I momentarily forgot my concerns. Then I remembered that bending and standing up, as required for bathroom cleaning, was quite taxing for Mom, so usually, Callie, Riley, or I would do it.
No, it's bad for your legs and back. I'll finish it. I can still do this much by myself.
I snatched the sponge from Mom as she was cleaning the wall and shooed her out of the bathroom into the living room. When I finished cleaning and went to the living room, I saw her trying to move the table. At her feet was a new, still rolled up carpet. Apparently, she wanted to lay down a new carpet.
Hey, that's dangerous and tough to do. Leave this kind of thing to us. Really? I think I can handle this much.
I asked her to sit down and take care of the carpet myself. Once I finished, I decided to be straightforward about my concerns.
Is it possible that Callie and Riley haven't been helping out at all?
Actually, that's true. She admitted while sipping her coffee. Seemingly unconcerned and continuing the conversation without looking at me, her gaze fixed on the TV.
That can't be right. What are those two thoughts? And why are you so calm about this? No need to shout, my ears aren't that bad. There's something more serious going on.
She replied, putting her cup down and turning to face me with a serious look. I looked into her eyes, feeling anxious about what she might say.
The truth is, there's something suspicious going on between Callie and Riley. Well, it's more than just suspicious, it's conclusive. What do you mean? Callie and Riley both have weekdays off, right? So, they've had the opportunity to meet up at the house. It seems their relationship has progressed from there. What? Callie and Riley? They can't be involved like that. When I returned from my walks alone, I found them at home together. You know I walk slowly, right? They didn't realize I was back and I overheard them having a conversation that strongly suggested an affair. It's too explicit to repeat, please don't make me say it.
I wanted to deny what Mom was saying. But deep down, I knew she had no reason to lie. I felt a sense of shock growing inside me. While my shock intensified, she continued.
Since they started having an affair and going out together, they've been neglecting me. That's why I had to go shopping and do the house chores. Oh, it's been so tough.
I envisioned her struggling with heavy shopping bags and cleaning the bathtub, trying to move the living room table. Thinking about how she struggled while Callie and Riley were enjoying themselves ignited a growing anger in me. It seemed she had skillfully managed my emotions. She knew telling me directly about the affair would shock me too much, so she led me to feel angry at Callie and Riley first. By openly showing her struggles, she probably wanted to prepare me for the shocking revelation. Thanks to Mom, I didn't fall into despair after hearing about the affair. Instead, I was thinking about how to make Callie and Riley pay.
We need proof for infidelity, right? What should we do? When you're not around, they talk about their affair in the house, right? Record their conversations and present that as proof. For a divorce on the grounds of infidelity, you need solid evidence of the affair, but just to confront them, a recording should be enough. But how can we record their conversation? I'll lend you a tablet. Can you secretly record them for me? Is that really okay? Recording family inside your own house is fine. If it weren't, we couldn't have nanny cams or security cameras, right? But can I really do it?
Don't worry, I'll teach you how to use it. I went back home to get the tablet and showed her how to recode videos. Being nearly 80-year-old, she struggled with the technology, but eventually got the hang of it.
Where's the tablet gone? Sorry, I fell asleep watching a drama and spilled juice on it. It's out for repair now, so just wait until it comes back. When will it be back? Not sure. They said it might take a while. Isn't there a replacement or something? Just put up with it. It's not like your phone is broken. You have the TV.
The reason for the tablet's disappearance from the house was a clumsy lie. But Riley believed it. Now, all I had to do was wait for her to capture the affair conversations. However, even though I had given her the tablet, it took a while for her to get used to it and send me the videos. A month later, when it was becoming hard to keep up the repair excuse, the tablet finally came back.
You really struggled with it, huh? There are so many video files. We were almost out of storage.
I'm sorry, I couldn't get it right. Gathering evidence of infidelity was tough, but it seemed Mom had a bit of fun playing detective. The latest files showed Callie and Riley going to a hotel and having conversations that hinted at divorce. They were holding hands, looking like high schoolers in their first relationship. While not direct proof of infidelity, it was enough material to confront them. Armed with the video evidence, Mom and I waited for Callie's return, and I called Riley, suggesting we all have dinner at her house.
Hey! Where's the food?
Just sit down. I told Riley as he entered the living room and sat on the sofa. Callie was already home, sitting there too. I had them sit together and glared at them both. They must have realized they were caught. However, neither of them seemed panicked, they were surprisingly composed. Annoyed by their expressions, I got straight to the point.
You two are having an affair, aren't you? I've heard affairs are common among older couples, but I never thought such fools would be so close to home.
An affair? Do you have any proof? I do. Mom recorded it. I said confidently, playing the videos on the tablet. I expected them to start panicking. But their reaction was unexpected.
Oh, we've been caught. I never thought she would use a tablet. She's never even touched a smartphone before, but she did well.
True. Well, I guess it's okay now. If we're caught, we're caught. Hey, bring it here. Callie stood up swiftly and disappeared into the back of the house. Only to return to the living room. With some documents in hand. She placed them on the table.
Sign on the divorce papers. I've already filled in my part. Come on, hurry up and sign it. If you sign it now, we can submit it as early as tomorrow.
Despite me having evidence of the affair and being on the offensive, Callie and my husband, smirking as if mocking me, thrust the divorce papers at me, tauntingly turning the tables. The fact that my husband already signed on the papers gave the impression that they weren't brazenly defiant after being caught, but rather, they never intended to hide the affair in the first place. I had wanted a divorce after finding out about Riley's infidelity with Callie. But not like this. It felt like admitting defeat. I wanted to sign the papers out of spite, but my frustration held me back.
What's the matter? Got cold feet now? Even if you don't want to divorce, you're going to. We want to get married soon.
Amazing, isn't it?
To think you can still fall in love in your 50s. And it being my wife's sister made it all the more thrilling. Are you really okay with divorcing over an affair? Talking about alimony? It's fine. I'll pay whatever. After all, I'm planning to inherit all of Mom's estate. What? All the estate? That's the money Dad left for Mom? I was unhappy when Dad's estate all went to Mom. Why didn't I get any money? You didn't complain when Dad left his will. I was young and didn't understand how inheritance worked. I didn't know about the reserved portion and thought we had to follow the will. When I learned I could have claimed $250,000, I was furious. So, I've been taking care of Mom, making sure I get my fair share this time. You just started helping recently, but I've been doing it all along. It's my right as the eldest daughter who's cared for Mom to get the full $1 million. But taking all $1 million isn't right. And bringing this up now. I felt awkward as Callie brought up inheritance in front of Mom. She remained silent and downcast. I wanted to defend Mom, but I lacked knowledge about inheritance. While it made sense for Callie to get more for her support, but I doubted it should be the entire amount. Yet, I couldn't articulate my thoughts. And stayed silent like Mom. I always tell Mom don't write in the will to disinherit me. I'll claim my reserved portion anyway, but it's such a hassle. Callie said, standing up and looking down at Mom. Her words were cruel. It seemed she had been saying this to Mom without my knowledge, berating her constantly. Riley's lack of surprise at Callie's words suggested that he was aware she had been verbally abusing our mother. Riley didn't seem surprised, possibly participating in the verbal abuse too. Mom must have been frightened by their vigorous energy, hidden from me all this time. I clenched my fists, enduring my own helplessness. Then Mom finally spoke. Okay, I won't leave a will. I'll give all the money to Callie. Is that what you want? Exactly. Just give me the money. After all, I can't easily give up my inheritance rights, and I'll just claim what I need. Yasmin agreed to Callie's demands. Now hurry up and sign the divorce papers. I reluctantly signed the papers, and Riley quickly snatched them from the table, happily leaving the house with Callie. Mom must have agreed to Callie's demands to avoid further conflict between us. However, she ended up promising to give all of Dad's money to Callie. Mom, was this really the right thing to do? It's okay. Just watch. My mother seemed to have a plan, but after what Callie and Riley did to me, I was left unable to think straight. The next night, they further crushed my already exhausted spirit. What? What's this? At noon, movers came and took away the stuff. It's been chaotic since the morning. When I got home from work, Riley's belongings were gone. In a panic, I rushed to Mom's house, only to find that Callie's belongings were missing too. After making me sign the divorce papers, Callie and Riley had dashed out of the house as if eloping. The divorce was eventually finalized, with Riley responding to the phone calls. However, I had no idea where the two of them were. I suspected they hadn't gone far due to work commitments. After the divorce, I moved out of the apartment I shared with Riley and started living with my mother. While I couldn't forgive Callie and Riley for their affair and the pain they caused, Mom seemed unfazed. Aren't you angry, Mom? Oh, yes. Maybe it's time to talk to you. I was shocked to learn that Mom had been orchestrating an incredible strategy all along. Everything seemed to have been in her hands. 2 years after Callie and Riley left, Mom passed away at the age of 80. Her lively nature made it seem like she might pop up at any moment joking, just kidding. I haven't fully processed her death yet. But I dread the calm that will come after the funeral. When that time comes, I plan to mourn alone fully. However, I can't stay sad forever. I have a task Mom entrusted me with. A month after the funeral, which Callie and Riley didn't attend, they showed up at the house. Callie, with a triumphant smirk, confronted me. As promised, I, the eldest daughter, will inherit all of her estate. There's no money for you. What? Just 2 seconds after Callie looked at me, I confronted her with the truth.
Caught off guard by my unexpected words, Callie and my ex-husband briefly showed a moment of confusion. However, thinking I was merely making a futile attempt to fight back, they quickly regained their smug, confident expressions.
What do you mean? That's impossible.
I've already told you, you can't just easily dismiss inheritance rights. Plus, Mom promised to give me all the money, right? You might not like it, but there's no point in struggling against it. You're familiar with inheritance, right? But it seems you didn't know about the disinheritance system. Disinheritance system? What's that? The disinheritance system is when someone commits an act that makes them ineligible to inherit. It includes serious crimes, forgery, destruction, alteration, or concealment of a will, and coercion in the creation, revocation, or alteration of a will. How does that relate to me? Didn't you pressure Mom not to leave a will? That's coercion, making you ineligible to inherit.
What? You're saying I lost my inheritance rights because I pressured Mom?
As I explained this to Callie, her composure crumbled. If she lost her inheritance rights, she wouldn't get a cent of the $1 million she was counting on. Understandably, she was panicking.
Did we really threaten Mom? I don't remember such a thing. Right, it was 2 years ago. Hard to remember. We never said anything like that.
Riley added, thinking they could talk their way out without evidence. But Mom had already blocked their escape route. What? You want to see proof? Just wait a minute.
Evidence? You have it.
I left Callie and Riley anxiously waiting at the entrance while I went to fetch the evidence. Here's the proof. It's all in here.
A memory card?
Both of you, it wasn't just on the day I signed the divorce papers. It seems you've been hurling abuse at Mom for a long time. I showed the infidelity videos, but Mom recorded much more.
More recordings? How could you say such awful things to Mom? Like, don't leave a will giving me the money, and threatening her about what would happen if she did. And telling her to take care of herself because you were going out.
As I recounted the abuse they hurled at Mom, there was no need to show the content of the memory card. Callie and Riley's faces turned ashen.
But even if you have that, can you really disinherit us? Inheritance rights can't be easily revoked, right?
I've heard that before. True, you can't easily revoke inheritance rights. But disinheritance isn't about revocation, it's about being stripped of the right, automatically, regardless of the deceased or heir's intent. So, no matter how much Callie demands, even if Mom had left a will, it doesn't matter. Callie's disinheritance is already decided.
That's a lie! I'll get a lawyer and expose your lie.
Feel free. I've already consulted with the lawyer who took care of Mom. He said to come to him again if you cause any trouble. So, whatever demands you make through your lawyer will probably be rejected. Callie and Riley, unable to judge the truth of my words, just hung their heads in silence, just like I did back then. If you're not going to say anything, can you leave? I never want to see your faces again. After kicking them out, I prayed and reported to Mom that I had done as she instructed. Later, Callie apparently went to consult a lawyer, but was turned away after being advised. Lawyers often refuse cases they're likely to lose, so that must have been the case. With her disinheritance confirmed, Callie lost the right to inherit even the reserved $500,000 she was entitled to. She was furious, but it was her own doing. And blaming Mom was completely misguided. Callie and Riley had been intimidating Mom. This could be considered psychological abuse of an elderly person, potentially subject to criminal charges. However, Mom chose to overlook that. Mom, you don't have to do anything? It's fine. It was just childish tantrums. My punishment was letting them find out they wouldn't get a cent after I was gone. I learned after they left that to Mom, Callie's actions were just a child's whining. That's why Mom always seemed unfazed, no matter what Callie said or did. Callie thought she was pressuring Mom, but in reality, Mom never took her seriously. Mom devised and executed a plan to disinherit Callie, but, since inheritance matters are dealt with after one's passing, she couldn't complete the final step herself. That's why she asked me to finish it. Mom, who had foreseen everything and maneuvered flawlessly, only panicked once. It was when I saw her memo. She had intentionally shown it to me to make me aware of Callie and Riley's actions, but she later regretted causing me anxiety, as she hadn't been bothered by their behavior herself. In the end, I ensured Callie didn't inherit a cent, but since both she and Riley are over 50 and have jobs, I thought not getting Mom's money wouldn't hurt them much. However, Mom's punishment turned out to be a bigger blow than I expected. They had recklessly spent their savings over the past 2 years, thinking they would inherit the $1 million. Now, they are frantically trying to replan for their old age. Moreover, Riley, finding himself penniless, turned to our daughter for help. But after hearing the reason for our divorce from me, she rejected both of them. Riley not only lost his connection with me through the divorce but also with our daughter. Callie and Riley have no one left to rely on, so they should live in the world they desired. They wanted this in the first place. Suddenly, I inherited $1 million. I find myself with no immediate need for it, as I have a home and a job. I've left it untouched, planning to give it to my daughter when she needs it for marriage, childcare, or other reasons. It seems I really am my mother's daughter.